It feels like a May night in early July, a perfect night to get on the train and head out to the ballpark. You never know what you might see in the game. It was 40 years ago tonight that Tom Seaver threw his imperfect game. Tonight, as the fans make their way through the Jackie Robinson Rotunda, it's the last chance for Met fans to see the Dodgers. You never know, you might see a great play by Daniel Murphy at first base. That was part of the act last night. Manny Ramirez plays his final game at Citi Field this year as the Mets and Jerry Manuel get set to face Joe Torre and the Dodgers. At Citi Field in New York, the New York Mets play the Los Angeles Dodgers. This Mets game on SNY is presented in HD by IOTV. Get the best in HD3 with IOTV. Have a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets play the rubber game of their three-game series against the Dodgers. The Mets got a badly needed win last night. They had lost 4 in a row. They had been shut out the previous 2 games, but everything kind of clicked last night into place.
It really did, and it really started with Oliver Perez. He really had a crisp breaking ball, and Jerry Manuel really wanted to see that his fastball was live, and it was, striking out Orlando Hudson. And for his teammates, it just seemed like a relief that Oliver Perez could come back and do what he did. But even more importantly, we've seen David Wright go into the game 0 for 16. He had a couple of hits in last night's game, and we know that when he gets hot, he can get red hot, hopefully for the last 4 games.
And the Mets got what they needed defensively on a most remarkable play.
Just an amazing behind the back, Bob Cousy, Walt Frazier, I don't care who he hurled, the Pearl Monroe. What a play by Daniel Murphy.
And he drew kudos from his teammates and even a little sheepish grin on his part to acknowledge a Gold Glove caliber play for Mr. Murphy, who, by the way, is not in the lineup tonight because the Dodgers are throwing Randy Wolf, who is one of the toughest pitchers in the league against left-handed hitters.
He really is. There's already 2 left-handed hitters in the lineup already, and I think it's better not to have 3. The key for the Mets is Wolf has pitched outstanding all season long. He has gotten 7 wins taken away from him, squandered by the bullpen. And, of course, Livan Hernandez pitching for the Mets. He was outstanding for 10 starts in a row where he did not lose, but now he's lost his last few starts, and he's got to be much better. We've seen that when the Mets get good starting pitching, it gives them a shot in these games.
Livan coming off his worst start of the season. He was pounded for 7 runs in just 3 innings by the Phillies. It's the Mets and the Dodgers on a beautiful night in New York. Come on back to Citi Field. All the action coming up on SNY. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Bigelow Tea, Joe Torre's green tea of choice. By State Farm. Today's State Farm agent of the day is John Garfinkel of Brooklyn, New York. Log on to SNY.TV/State Farm to check out the State Farm agent of the day. By Citi. By Lexus. And by Pella Windows, the Mets official window and door replacement company. Call 1-866-64-PELLA for special savings today. Take your next Mets amazing getaway through upstate New York, August 10th through the 14th. Visit the Baseball Hall of Fame, Niagara Falls, and see the Buffalo Bisons and the Binghamton Mets. Get to Mets.com or call 888-419-5556 today to book your trip. Here's your Jeep around the majors this afternoon. The Rays beat the Blue Jays again 3-2. David Price beating Roy Halladay, who falls to 10-3 on the year. Joel Pinheiro, complete game 3-hitter, as the Cardinals beat the Brewers 5-1. Cardinals now 2 games ahead of the Brewers in the Central. And a Kelly Shoppach grand slam. He drove in 5 as the Indians beat the White Sox 10-8.
Well, in that game against Price against Halladay, Halladay now 10-3. Pinheiro's game, Ryan Ludwig with a 3-run home run.
It's been an eventful series so far. The Mets and the Dodgers splitting the first 2 games. Now the rubber game tonight. First pitch coming up. Dodgers tonight. Andre Ethier, who's been slumping badly, moved into the number 2 hole by Joe Torre so he can get some fastballs to hit. Matt Kemp can't escape the 8 hole. I guess it's because he's hitting over 500 batting 8th. And Rafael Furcal all of a sudden has perked up, and he's got great career numbers against Livan Hernandez, who tries to bounce back from a dreadful outing his last time in Philadelphia.
Well, he did. He did not have any of his stuff last time in Philadelphia. In fact, he's lost his last 3 starts. 5-4 record so far this year, but this would be a big start for Hernandez to get the Mets a chance to win the series. Lexus Mets defense. Church is flanked, of course, by Evans and Sheffield. that double play game-ending grounder by Cora last night off the bat of Vitia, right, Castillo and Tatis. And Santos, of course, his 40th start behind the plate. He has thrown out less than 25% of the steals.
And you see Daniel Murphy sitting on the bench tonight against the left-hander after his highlight reel play last night. It's interesting looking at that defense and seeing Nick Evans playing left field tonight. Earlier in the season, it was routine to come out here at 3 o'clock and see thousands of balls lying in left field because Murphy was being worked every day. Now it's Nick Evans doing the exact same thing every day at 3 o'clock. Here's Rafael Furcal leading off the ball game, and he takes a strike from Livan Hernandez. One thing you can say about all the Mets' defensive problems over the course of this season, they haven't been for a lack of hard work, especially for guys who are either learning new positions or out of position. Flared out to left field, and that'll fall in for a base hit. Hops up into the stands, and a ground rule double for Rafael Furcal to lead off the night. So Furcal just dunking one inside the chalk.
Really just laid his bat out there and just caught a little bit of that chalk on the outside part, just enough to be a fair ball. Easy call for Wally Bell. He made like a umpire in a tennis match.
Didn't even need the computerized replay. You know, watching the tennis, by the way, over the weekend, they have that system that they use for calling balls in and out. I know it would be a lot more complicated to use that in baseball, but that was fascinating.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It really works.
Yeah, the problem is that the players they're going to start using it in a way to give themselves a break occasionally, because I think they have 4 or 5 that they can argue during the course of play.
1-1 to Ethier. Of course, we have the Coors Light Freeze Cam, which works just about as well.
Oh, that's great. Wow. That's so great for Livan.
It's the modern miracle of chalk dust. Dodgers got a run in the first inning last night against Oliver Perez and looking to strike first tonight. Ethier, who went 0 for 5 last night and into that game-ending double play, takes one low and away, and it's 2-1. Ethier just 5 for his last 43, but you see the good numbers against Livan, 6 for 16 with a home run, with Manny Ramirez looming on deck. Well, there is Ollie, who made some Mets history last night. First Met pitcher ever to walk 7, pitch less than 6 innings, and get a win.
When I think about walks, and I've said it on the show many times that I was a walk machine my first few years, but I'll tell you, Mike Torres, who was with the Mets in 1984, came up to me one time. He said, "You cannot walk that many hitters." Next game, he walked 9. Wasn't as fortunate as Ollie, though. Did not come up with a win.
Well, one thing that's been troubling about the Mets pitching over the last month or so has been an alarming number of walks, and that's even before Ollie came back. The Met pitching staff is now 2nd in the National League in most walks allowed, and that's not a place you want to be.
Especially in this ballpark. There's usually no walks in this ballpark. Take a chance.
And Santos and Hernandez having a big-time problem getting together here.
Well, the problem for Santos is Livan has about 22 pitches. So at some point, you know, it makes it hard for him to figure out and get on the same page as Livan, who will add and subtract to all of his breaking pitches and his fastball. Danny Worthen.
Hit hard into left field, a base hit. Furcal held up, so home move to third and pull in there. And so the Dodgers with back-to-back base hits to open the night. First and third and nobody out with Manny Ramirez coming up.
Well, Manny in this series, that big hit off Pelfrey drove him back 2-out RBI, and then driving this run in with his base hit to right field. And of course the big hit off K-Rod that got the Dodgers dangerously close. Took them the other way, something you just don't see here at Citi Field. But there's a lot of things that he's done that you don't usually see.
In fact, it was Manny's 2nd home run in his last 2 plate appearances against K-Rod. He hit a home run against him at Fenway Park last year before he was traded. So first and third and nobody out. Heavy lifting for Livan. Hit right back up the middle, a base hit, and the Dodgers take the lead. For Colin to score as Manny Ramirez jumps on the first pitch and gets one by Livan. That's tough to do. And the Dodgers lead 1-0.
Well, whenever you're going over the scouting report, you've got to know this. In RBI situations, Manny is ready to hit, and he's not the kind of hitter that's going to try to do too much. What you give him, he will just try to drive that ball, and he finds a hole there between the legs of Hernandez and out to center field.
It almost looked as though Levon let that ball go on purpose. Did he think he had a defender there? As Blake fouls one at the plate and it hits him, a foul ball.
Well, because Levon is such a good fielder, you would think he would have tried to make that play, but you got to know where your fielders are. If Manny is up, then your shortstop is going to be playing into the hole for the pole. He's in fielding position.
It looks as though he consciously pulls out of the way, thinking, well, maybe that he had Castillo pulled over that way.
I think you're right, but you cannot do that with Manny because you're going to have to be in the hole.
Casey Blake hitting at 288, and he drives one to center field. Church is there waiting for it, and that's the first out of the night, and the runners hold. So another hard hit ball against Levon as Blake lines out, and that'll bring up James Loney. Loney riding a 7-game hitting streak, but sat out last night for the first time this season with the lefty Oliver Perez on the mound, right back in there tonight. The umpires tonight, Marty Foster behind the plate, Chad Fairchild, Hirschbeck the crew chief, and Wally Bell, who had the plate last night, is at third.
We'll never know how we're going to show the umpires. We've got little tricks up our sleeve.
It's been an eventful week for Marty Foster, the home plate umpire in New York. First at Yankee Stadium, where he had that call on the Derek Jeter steal of third that led to Joe Girardi being ejected, and a kind of a war of words between Foster and Jeter for a couple of days afterward, which is very unusual.
Well, Jeter was thrown out trying to steal third. Marty Foster told him when Jeter got up to argue that the ball beat you. Simple as that. Jeter said, hey, he's got to tag me. He said, the ball beat you. Well, that's what Jeter said. And then when Hirschbeck came back, and he's the crew chief, and had talked to Marty Foster, Marty apparently told John Hirschbeck that what he had said is that the ball beat you and he got you with the tag. And they came back to Jeter, that's what Marty said. And Jeter said, I don't think so. He said, the ball beat me, that's it. That's all he said. So.
And I thought what was interesting, too, is that John Hirschbeck didn't allow Foster to talk to the media about it for 2 days. Then last night, when Foster was involved with the play at first base with Daniel Murphy, which Joe Torre argued, Foster was allowed to talk to the media. So I thought that was interesting.
I think that just like the players and the manager, that the umpires should be open to the media after the game. Simple as that. They can make some really crucial calls.
3-1 to Loney. And Levon walks him, and the bases are loaded. So a very rough start for Levon Hernandez. A run already in, bases loaded, 1 out, and Russell Martin coming up.
Well, we've seen how it's very difficult for Levon to kind of ease into games. First innings have always been a problem for him this year.
In his last start, he faced 9 batters and gave up 3 first-inning runs against the Phillies.
And listen, this is the kind of pitcher he has been the past few years. He will have a lot of runners on base, sometimes bend but not break, but you're going up against the best team in the National League, best record in the major leagues.
So a big batter here for Levon, trying to avoid falling in a big early hole. And Martin takes the slider off the plate for ball 1.
And Marty Foster's has a very, very tight strike zone, which is very unlike both John Hirschbeck and Wally Bell, have worked the first 2 games of this series. Defensively here with Martin up, pretty straight up all the way around. Martin's been swinging the bat excellent.
Here's a strike, 1-1. Well, the other cautionary note about Levon, he got off to a great start this year and certainly outperformed everybody's expectations in April and May. But that's kind of been the case the last few years with Levon. And then he's had trouble in the middle of the season. Fouled away. In April and May of the last 3 years, he's 15-5. That counts, so 7, 08, and this year. But in June and July, in those same seasons, he's gone 6-14. So you certainly don't expect that to happen, but history at least will guide you that a strong start doesn't necessarily mean a strong middle of the season for Livan.
You know, sometimes we always talk about in-game going through the lineup 2 or 3 times. Maybe for Livan going through the league a couple of times. They kind of zone into his abilities.
He's ahead on Martin 1-2. Of course, the difference this year for Livan is that for the first time in those 3 seasons, he's healthy.
Yeah. He doesn't have the knee problems and the leg problems that he's had in the past, so that should help him. And people say, you know, healthy. He pitched on that leg, yeah. But the problem is if you have a bad leg, in between your starts, you're not able to do the necessary work you need to do to be ready for the course of the entire season.
And so that could wear you down as the season goes along.
You know, whether it's running or bike work or whatever Livan does in between starts.
1-2 to Martin, just off the corner, and now it's 2-2.
So the base is loaded, just walked Loney. This is a pitch that you got to think is Martin's using all of that box.
And more.
For Livan, he's got to really have this ball put in play. He's got to go after Martin here. You don't want to go 3-2.
Needs that ground ball. And the curveball struck him out. So Livan unleashing that slow curve to get Martin for the second out of the inning. There's a big out.
And you know what's interesting, Gary? You will see this curveball work early and often because this is the first time that Martin saw it. You see the grip and just kind of flips it up there, and they just cannot stay back long enough. Ball stayed on the inside part off the plate to Martin, but still swung.
So 2 out, bases remain loaded, and now Orlando Hudson dropped to number 7 in the batting order tonight. Just 2 hits in his last 32 at bats. So Joe Torre moved him down. Now he's up in a big spot in the first inning, and he hits one to left field, chasing Evans back. Going back, got turned around, and it's over his head. And short hops the wall. 2 runs are in. Here comes Loney to try to score. The relay throw not in time. Throw to third. Now they've got Hudson on a rundown. And Tatis runs him down and puts on the tag to end the inning, but it's a 3-run double for Orlando Hudson. And the Dodgers played 4 in the first inning against Livan Hernandez. So another bad first inning for Livan puts the Mets in an early hole. Here's your Mets starting lineup tonight, brought to you by Geico. Luis Castillo moves into the leadoff spot against the lefty. Cora dropped to the 8-hole. He's generally been hitting second against the left-handers, but Jerry Manuel wants to get a look at Nick Evans in the 2-hole, get him some fastballs to hit. Well,
some of the Mets know very, very well. former Philly Randy Wolf here with the Dodgers. 260th career start, 30 versus the Mets. His last 8 against the Mets, he's 5-0 with a 3.40 ERA. He's got 12 no decisions this year. 7 wins have been squandered by the bullpen. So he's had an outstanding year.
That's unbelievable. Those 7, many more than anybody else in the majors. Nobody else has had more than 4 wins squandered by the bullpen, which is so strange because the Dodger bullpen has generally been very good this year. Castillo to lead off. Great career numbers against Wolf. 375 and 48 at bats. And he takes a strike.
That's interesting you say that. There was one year that I can't remember what year it was, but every time Jesse came in after a game I had pitched, it just didn't work out right. I remember one day he came up and he just came up after the game and said, "I apologize. I don't know why it's always you." I said, "Well, if you're not trying, then we have a problem." But those things just happen.
I don't think that was the case.
No.
Orlando Hudson positioned perfectly, playing Castillo to pull there, and that worked out as he throws out Louis for the first out.
Well, the defense for the Dodgers, you can see in the outfield, Ramirez, Nietier, Kemp in the middle with 9 assists. Casey Blake at third base made a key error off the bat of Brian Church last night for Carl Hudson-Maloney. Of course, Russell Martin this year only made 2 errors in 593 chances, and the staff ERA when he's behind the dish, 3.38. That's outstanding.
Here's Evans hitting in the 2-hole for the first time since he was called up this year. Hitting at 282 in just 39 at bats. Nothing in 1 to Nick.
Russell Martin forgot his thumb guard. That is something that catchers will use. It's really hard plastic, and it'll fit over their thumb, and it also fits in the glove, and it'll stop them from getting those sprained thumbs from those fastballs that they don't catch perfectly right in the middle of the glove.
Curveball in for a strike, and it's 0-2. I wonder, you look at Martin, who is an Iron Man back there behind the plate. Do you think he uses the thumb guard for every pitcher?
No, certain pitchers. It depends, guys who have that late movement. A lot of times, good sinker ball pitchers, the guys will use that thumb guard, or they'll have it on when they've gotten an injury. Sometimes they get the injury hitting, and they'll use it to protect that thumb. I think Wolf also has a nice little curveball that breaks sharply and late. That'll protect. It's David Wright breaks on deck. Nice little game for David last night. It was nice seeing him not only get those couple of hits, but they were both on fastballs. And that is something that he's been struggling with a little bit.
1-2 to Evans. And that cutter misses inside.
Wolf first came up, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, really just a fastball, curveball pitcher. And he really fancied himself, despite his kind of smaller stature, as a strikeout power pitcher.
He would work up in the zone a lot when he first came up. Of course, the Mets have seen so much of him because he pitched all those years for the Phillies.
Well, perfect form here. The veteran Wolf, not only with the leg kick and the fall through, but look at his fielding position. Ready to catch anything up the middle.
And Evans watches low, ball 4. So the Mets have a 1-out base runner with David Wright coming up. Wolf came into the night having walked only 31 batters in 108 innings. So not a guy who's going to walk the ballpark. Now Wright, who snapped out of an 0 for 17 last night with a pair of hits. And of course, David has torn up lefties not only this year, but his whole career, hitting .415 against left-handers this season.
But defensively, still in the outfield, they're shading him to right field. The middle of the infield defense pretty straight up. Maybe Hudson shading a little bit towards second base, allows Wright that hole to the right side.
And a fastball paints the outside corner for a strike.
Wolf's another guy that could have been had for a song and a dance this winter. He's really worked out for the Dodgers.
Well, his record's only 3-3, but he's pitched much better than that. As Ronnie noted, with all the no decisions and all the games blown by the bullpen. And he's worked both corners to right to get ahead 0-2.
getting the sign from the coaching staff. Only the throw over. Interesting. Martin using multiple signs here in this ballpark. Joe looking down. Usually it's not the manager who gives the signs to Russell Martin. It'll be the bench coach, maybe Schaefer. Bob Schaefer's one of their bench coaches.
Bob Schaefer at one time a manager in the Mets farm system. In fact, won an International League championship.
That's right.
Managing at Tidewater.
I've known Schaefer since I was high schooler. There's Joe giving the signs.
And Wolf keeping an eye on Evans, who almost got himself picked off, and I'm not sure if that was a legal move by Wolf, but it almost worked.
Well, it's not. He's got a good block move, and watch Evans just stranded there. Boy, he could have called him. He doesn't step to first at all. Watch. See the leg?
Not only that, but a lefty is not allowed to draw his knee towards second base, is he? And it almost looked like he did that as well.
Well, the veteran pitchers who've been around a long time that do the same thing they've done for a long period of time usually get off with making that move over and over by umpires. It's just kind of how it goes.
Unless Bob Davidson's in the building.
Yes.
Wright lifts one along the right field line. Ethier over into the corner, but runs out of room.
And what else that Wolf does that's really nice is that he will come to the stretch. He'll look at the runner, then look home, and look back at the runner. And as soon as he looks at the runner and then looks home, a lot of runners fall asleep and say, well, if he looked home, he must be going home.
Evans not a base stealer. And the curveball misses to right, and so after getting ahead 0-2, Wolf has gone 3-2. Randy Wolf now 32 years old. He grew up just a half hour from Dodger Stadium. Now in his second tour of duty with the Dodgers. 3-2. We'll see if Evans runs. With the number of times that David has struck out this year, it's hard to figure you send the runner in this spot.
Yeah, I would not send a runner. Watch this look. Looks at the runner. He'll look home and then look back. Not a full look, just a little peek at home and then back to first.
Not going, and Wright lines a base hit into right center field. Evans heads to third. Ethier cuts it off, and the Mets have runners at the corners with one down. Now David Wright doing what he used to do early in his career, getting behind, working himself back into the count, and getting a base hit to right field.
And what you love is have him hit the ball that's on the outside corner to the right side. See that big hole between Hudson and Loney at first base. David takes advantage of it, even though this is over the head of Hudson. But a lot of real estate to hit that ball, and he did. The eyes, bat behind the ball. Still front shoulders not completely out, so he can power that ball and drive it to right center field.
So after quickly falling behind 4-0, the Mets try to chip back. Here's Sheffield. Sheffield hitting at .277. And the curveball misses for ball one. And you're right about Morty Foster. He's tough tonight.
And it's interesting that most crews that I've noticed so far in the last 3-4 years, they all seem to call about the same strike zone. They have a kind of a theme on what they will call, but Foster's very tight compared to the first two umpires, Hirschbeck and Bell.
Almost like the crew chief sets the tone.
Yes.
And in this case, John Hirschbeck, the crew chief, has always been a pitcher's umpire.
You see that with Tim McClellan. A couple of his umpires take their time to call that 3-2 pitch, which is always one of your favorites.
Yeah. No comment. 1-1 to Sheffield. And the curveball lined into center field. A base hit. That brings home Evans. Wright pulls in at second. And the Mets have gotten a run back. It's 4-1 LA. So Sheffield drives in his 32nd run of the year.
What an important start by the Mets. What's Sheffield's back foot? Usually you want to push off that back foot, but he's so strong he can just use that those hands and power that ball to center field.
A You get on the front foot of that curveball, and he still has something left.
Outstanding hitting. I think equally what an important part of this game that the Mets put, even if it's just one run, they put a run on the board.
Well, here's a big at bat for Fernando Tatis, who has been grounding into double plays prodigiously. 0 for his last 12 at the plate, and now in a position where, with an extra base hit, he's putting the Mets right back into the game. Right at second, Sheffield at first, and 1 out.
Straight up on Tatis. Double play depth, of course.
And the curveball hit in the air to deep left field. Back goes Ramirez onto the warning track, and he runs it down. Tatis making a bid for a game-tying 3-run homer, but it comes up 8 or 10 feet short. And that's the second out of the inning.
Well, this is a hanging curveball. This ball seems covered by Tatis, and Citi Field taketh away. The ball went nowhere. It's a little cooler here tonight, so the ball is not going to travel, and that made for an unusually easy catch. Although you see Tatis put his head down, maybe he knew he did not completely get that baseball.
Hey, what though, we've seen more than our share of balls that you think are crushed that just don't go out in this ballpark. So it's left to Ryan Church with 2 out and 2 on. Church just 1 for his last 15 and has struggled against lefties this year. Wolf's numbers against left-hand hitters are remarkable because he's not been in the past a guy who dominates left-hand hitters. Last year, lefties hit 286 off Wolf. This year, just 111. And now he's ahead on Church, 0-2. There's Santos hoping for a turn on deck. So you see, this year is something of an aberration, and you wonder why. Wright is at second. Sheffield at first with 2 out. Wolf ahead 0-2 on Church. And he misses low and away with the fastball.
You know, part of the reason I think also is that they got some offensively challenged teams in that National League West also. So that will add to your numbers. That just like it would be more difficult to pitch in the AL East if you're a young pitcher. You know, earning your chops in the American League East is a hard way to go. They got some good lineups.
Hudson will make the throw to first and get Church to end the inning. Well, the Mets scratch back with 1 run. A walk to Nick Evans produces a run-scoring hit by Gary Sheffield. We go to the second at Citi Field, 4-1 LA. cool look here at Citi Field. Is that from somewhere inside the Acela Club?
You know, it's funny. Our cameraman, Al Friedman, who we love on the show, of course, he was here with his family. There's his family, his 2 daughters and his wife. But it was so funny. They're here, and they were looking here in the booth, Gary, and they're looking out. And I said, boy, you want to go on the field and do something? No, we just want to go to Shake Shack. I mean, that's what they were looking forward to. It's amazing.
I'm telling you what, the food is front and center in this ballpark. A little Shake Shack, a little Blue Smoke, a little catch of the day. Everybody's happy. Matt Kemp red hot in the 8-hole. Takes low and outside. It's 2-0. Kemp 5 for 7 in this series. And in the 8th spot in the batting order, 21 for 41. That's a .512 batting average. So why move him?
This kid has unlimited talent, Kemp. I've talked to many people over there with the Dodgers and say that his learning curve is so huge and that he really doesn't even know, hasn't tapped into the potential he could have. We've got a nice glimpse of it with his speed the last couple of nights. His defensive play, that great throw to third base to Nap Castillo. But he put a display on in batting practice that the only person I've seen do that here is Albert Pujols, where balls are in the upper deck, hit 10 or 12 out. Just sheer raw talent.
He's got 10 home runs this year. He's hitting .314. He's having quite a season. And the curveball lined to left field, and that'll fall in front of Evans for a base hit. Well, when Evans plays shallow, they hit it over his head. When he plays deep, they dump it in front of him. A leadoff hit for Kemp. See the Mets at the movies in Manhattan, New Jersey, or Long Island Thursday night, July 16th. Join Mr. Met and fellow Met fans for SNY's live broadcast when the Mets face the Braves at 7:10 p.m. Get your tickets at Mets.com/movies today. So Randy Wolf up there to bunt. Wolf 3 hits, 4 sacrifices this year. Kemp, you got to watch out because he has 19 stolen bases this year.
Both these pitchers have a lot of experience with the sacrifice bunt. 61 for Randy Wolf, 95 for Livan Hernandez.
Santos will play it. Nope, Livan takes it away from him. Santos was calling for it all the way, but Livan makes the play. And fortunately for the Mets, they didn't box each other out.
A little bumper cars here by battery mates. Wolf lays down a perfect bunt with perfect form. Look at that head right on the baseball, catching the baseball with the bat and taking down to first base. And a little collision here by the battery mates. I want it. I need one more assist to set this now.
That is a great picture. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It's like Siamese hands on the baseball. I mean, they both had simultaneous possession. It's like a jump ball.
It's like playing basketball on the road with Kevin Burkhardt. He just can't get the ball out of his hands.
Here's Furcal, who dropped a double on the left field line his first time up.
Beautiful form, as we saw on the Coors Light freeze cam. See how he pinches the bat? So it's that it doesn't expose all those fingers like Kuroda, who last night put his fingers around the bat. Just perfect form by Wolf.
And with Kemp dancing off second base, Livan steps off. Kemp certainly a threat to steal third. And there's a strike to Furcal, 1-1.
We have seen more attempts at picking off runners at second base with Cora in a half a season than we've seen with Reyes in 4 years. I mean, Cora really works that second base bag. In fact, last night worked it in the 9th inning with Frankie Rodriguez. There we go again.
There's a try, and they got him. Beautifully done. Perfect throw by Livan, and Cora got the tag down to pick off Kemp. 2 out.
Well, you saw raw talent, but maybe not the baseball instincts you need. And Cora, that wasn't even close. Came out in that picture late, lays down the tag on that hand. Never got to the bag. Good play by Hernandez and Cora.
So 2 out and nobody on. And Furcal whacks one into left field, and he's got a base hit. So that makes the pickoff loom that much larger. 6 hits now off Livan Hernandez in an inning and 2/3.
Well, you can see Kemp looking towards the second baseman, not paying any attention. Takes it one step, and of course Cora with that daylight play. What do I call it, daylight? For Hernandez, that's the signature play. As soon as he sees daylight between Kemp and Cora, that's the time to throw it to second.
Nobody was better at that play than you were.
Oh,
you and Kevin Elster. Here's Ethier with 2 out and a runner at first. And what's the key to that play? Is it the deception on the part of the shortstop?
It's the communication between pitcher and shortstop. At some point, you catch each other's eye. And before the first pitch is thrown to the batter, you'll see Kemp taking the big lead. And then what you'll do is that if you're a pitcher, you'll catch Cora's eye like, hey, this guy's got a big lead. If you want to go take him, you do it. Watch. Daylight, you go. And you know, the great thing about that is that Livan read Cora that there wasn't a lot of daylight there, but Cora's so quick to the bag that he was able to turn that easily. You got to know your shortstops, Gary. That's the key. With Elster, how we did it is that we perfected a play where he would never have daylight. He would come behind the runner and only have his glove there. So sometimes I threw to the bag, never seeing Elster. He would just lay his glove on the bag, and that's where my aim was. And he had to better be there.
Kevin Elster had as good hands as any shortstop I've ever seen.
He was a delight to play with in the field. He was one of the funniest guys off the field I've ever been around. A real enigmatic character. And I think he would say himself, if he was listening to this broadcast, he should have been a better offensive player. He had some good offensive years late in his career, but consistently as a Met, he should have better years.
Well, Ethier works out a walk, so after picking off Kemp at second base, Hernandez in danger of squandering that advantage, giving up the base hit to Furcal, now walking Ethier right in front of Manny Ramirez. Second walk given up by Livan, who continues to struggle.
Now you say to yourself, okay, he swung at the first pitch last at bat. It was a fastball. What are we going to feature now against him? Well, I don't throw inside fastballs, so if I were Manny Ramirez, he's very thoughtful, and he's thinking to himself, I got him on first pitch fastball. He's so good, he might look for a breaking ball first pitch.
Would you throw that slow curve?
Slow curve, not first pitch. I would not throw it first pitch. I would, if I got ahead, try to throw it and make sure it's in the dirt. But he just makes too good of an adjustment. But he might get a little slider away. He's got to make sure it's away.
Hit hard, base hit into left field. Furcal will score easily, and it's 5-1 LA. Second time in a row with a runner in scoring position that Manny has jumped on that first pitch, and he delivers again.
I'm telling you, he just sat first pitch breaking ball. That's what he got. It just wasn't a good one from Livan. Stayed in the middle of the plate. And of course,
the Manny wannabes. Happy with that development.
Fellow Rasta man.
Yeah. Or at least Rasta light.
6 RBIs for Manny Ramirez in this series. 27 for the year. 5-1 LA.
And now Casey Blake takes ball one. Blake lined out to center field his first time up. Well, whether it be in Cleveland, Boston, or LA, Manny Ramirez has fashioned a career the likes of which baseball has rarely seen. 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, 9 consecutive seasons. Is going to get to 9 this year too.
Yes,
he'll be there by the end of July.
Quicker than anyone else too.
And Blake lines a base hit.
Here comes Ethier to the plate, and Evans's throw is cut off, and it's 6-1 LA. So for the second straight start, Livan Hernandez just unable to stem the flow.
And it's really just the execution of pitches. His breaking balls are sitting in the middle of the plate and not breaking towards the outside. See, just catching too much plate from Livan. And Blake has been doing well out of that batting cleanup.
Now Tim Redding to work in the Mets bullpen. But after the Dodgers got 4 runs in the first inning, and Livan had 2 out and nobody on here in the second after picking Matt Kemp off second base. For a call with a base hit, a 4-pitch walk to Ethier, and then RBI hits by Ramirez and Blake have made it 6-1. And you have to say this is a troubling development.
Well, since Reyes went on the disabled list, Jerry Manuel implored his pitchers, particularly his starting pitchers, that he needed them to pitch better, more consistent baseball, and except for some stops and starts and some good efforts by the starting pitchers, that has not been one of their good part of their games. It hasn't been.
Well, we mentioned this when the month turned, that in the month of June, the Mets had a month in which both their starters and relief pitchers as a group had ERAs over 5. And that's the first time that had happened in any month for the Mets since 1962. So at a time when the Mets have needed their pitching to step up the most, they've actually taken a big step back. Now, part of that, of course, is because you're missing 2 fifths of your starting rotation. Maine is out, and Perez has been out for 2 months. And if you look at what the Mets have thrown out there over the last month or so, they've been going with 3 number 5 starters. Now, Livan, over the first couple of months, pitched much better than a number 5 starter, but that's how he began the year, and then Nieve and Redding the same.
Jerry Manuel was talking about sometimes it can be an epidemic for an offensive challenge team that they go into a rut together. Well, it looks like the starting pitching has gone into a little rut together also. See Dan Worth, and I know exactly what he's saying. I'm not going to say it though. I can't. He's saying that he needs to do a little more inside. I mean, that is the key for Livan. He cannot forget about that inside part of the plate.
And Loney takes one just inside. It's 2-2. And I think Livan thought he was going to get that call, but Marty Foster said no.
Well, Livan has a very simple motion. He doesn't really use the bottom half of his body. Just really lets gravity take him to the plate. You see that front shoulder. Keeps that closed a long period of time. That's how you get the ball to the inside part of the plate on the left-handed Loney.
Loney reaches and fouls one off.
And you little guys are at home and you are working on your pitching and you're a right-hander and you're trying to throw the ball to the outside corner of the right-handers or inside corner of the left-handers, just concentrate on keeping your front shoulder closed as long as you can, because you can't do it. Can't hold it there forever. It's got to open up at some point because you got to throw, but try to exaggerate how much you keep that front shoulder closed.
And Loney drives one to right center field, cutting over his Church to make the running grab to end the inning. But the Dodgers add 2. Manny Ramirez with his second run scoring hit of the day. And now we go to the bottom of the second with the Mets 5 runs down. Who wants it? We both do. Does 6 runs in the first 2 innings.
Well, when you watch Levon and you watch his motion, he throws a little 3/4 anyways. He kind of throws across his body. But really the key for him is that he's getting under the baseball. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times if you look at a pitcher and they throw 3/4, what you want him to do is that you're going to be outside here with the baseball. You're going to be outside here with the baseball, but you can't be underneath the baseball. And that's what he's doing right now. What you want him to do, if you want to throw 3/4, you're going to be on top of it still. So you can throw this way, but you're going to be on top of the baseball, not under it. That's why you get the slider that spins like that instead of having that nice break.
And how do you rectify that problem?
Well, you want your pitching coach to point it out to you. How do you rectify it? One of the keys is just when you have in your warm-ups or when you're thinking about it, just say in your brain over and over and over, stay on top of the ball. Stay on top of the ball. That is the key.
Omir Santos takes a strike.
You'll see a lot of pitchers when they get late in the game, you'll see them that they'll start to get underneath the baseball. It's fatigue. And it certainly can't be fatigue here with Levon. It's only in the last of the second inning. It's just a mechanical, fundamental flaw that he's going through right now.
Santos in a struggle like most of the Met hitters right now. 2 for his last 24.
The problem with Santos is, and we've talked about it before with Murphy, talked about it with Parnell, the league makes an adjustment. And what adjustment do they make against Omir Santos? Remember that 4-for-4 game he went? The most telling sign of that 4-for-4 game for the rest of the league was on 8 pitches. And the rest of the league knows that he is swinging early and often, and they've taken that into account. And how do you counter that? You throw a lot more balls off the plate, off the strike zone. Because you know that Omir is aggressive and wants to swing.
And he has walked very little this year. In fact, his on-base percentage is under 300.
8 walks.
Yeah. Alex Cora hitting 8th tonight on deck. 3-2 now to Santos. And he bounces one out to short for Furcal. And Wolf gets the first down in the home second inning. So 1 away. What's going on down there? Oh, it's pushed. Coming out on DVD.
I've got it all now. DVD, slingshot. I've got everything you need to not ever spend a second talking to anybody. iPods.
You know, it's very interesting that you say that. Here's Alex Cora, because I was talking to somebody today, and I'm not going to say who it was, and they had their BlackBerry out. And I asked them what they were doing, and this person says, "Well, I'm reading my Twitter, And I said, "Oh, are you tweeting?" And they said, "No, I'm reading it." I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, just so I know what's going on. It helps me when I read things that I know what's going to happen before anybody else." And why?
Not that interested in knowing what other people are doing. Really not.
I mean, if I really need to know, I'll call them, or they'll call me.
I get this from my family all the time. It drives me crazy.
I mean, you know, I've had people say, "Well, I'll email you BlackBerry." I said, "I have a BlackBerry. I have no interest in having a BlackBerry."
I don't have one either. And I've left lunch with a friend of mine once because he was texting during lunch. I just got up and left. Like, it's ridiculous. Come on.
Well, we work with a guy who texts while he's working.
I know, but he can do both. He's got one eye on each thing.
Cora slops one to short. Furcal backing off to play it and using that strong arm to nip Cora at first base for the second out. Well, some people multitask better than others. I will say that.
My family always says to me that this is the constant theme now. Because you know how, like, on my Sundays, I like to get my newspapers and do my crossword puzzle. And they say this all the time. You talk less than any other person I know who makes a living talking 3.5 hours every night. No one talks less than you, and it's very true.
Well, I'm encouraged to talk less because every time I talk, my kids ridicule me.
Okay, yeah, mine are that age too.
Levon fouls it away, and it's 0-2. Very unusual circumstance tonight. Well,
there we go.
There's a Blackberry fiend. I'll tell you what, everybody on the planet is going to have carpal tunnel syndrome with their thumbs within the next 10 years.
And then you and me have
our little phone.
These are antique, these phones.
Well, it takes pictures.
Well, I went to get a charger for this phone because I lost mine, which happens all the time.
Levon dumps one into shallow left, and he's got himself a base hit. So a 2-out single for Levon Hernandez, his 4th hit of the year.
And, for most pitchers, this would not be a hit because you play them so shallow, but you can't do that with Levon Hernandez, who has excellent power. So this ball off the end of the bat just loops in front of Manny Ramirez.
What club was that? What club was that?
I don't know.
By the way, we don't normally talk about golf exploits on this program, but I know that you had one the other day.
Yeah. Well, Keith always says when a hit like that, he always says what? A lob wedge. That was a lob wedge that he talks about. Yeah, I made a hole-in-one yesterday, which was pretty unbelievable because I joined a guy I did not know on the golf course, and they drove me out there, and I joined him. We shook hands, and I made a par, and then I made another par, and I made an ace. And he was jumping up and down. He was so excited. He thought it was the greatest thing in the whole world. And I was like, you know what? This guy is a really nice guy, but it'd be better if you made an ace with his friends. You know what I mean? He had some bragging rights. Although it would be more costly because,
Did you get to buy?
Yes, I tried to buy, but this was at 12 o'clock, so no one was taking.
Not that much to buy.
That's right. That's a great golfer, Rick Honeycutt. His son has played professionally.
So how many for you now?
3.
That's very impressive. I don't speak golf.
I know, like every time we come here, and Kerry, our stage manager, is an avid golfer, and whenever I come here, there's golfees that we talk. How did you hit the shot? Well, I only brought a few clubs out there, and so I was just wanted to go and hit some 3/4 shots, so it was a little back right pin. So I played an extra club and played a little cut to a back right pin. Kind of spun, came back, and went in the hole. I said that to Kerry. She was smiling the whole time, knew exactly what I was talking about. You left. Castillo draws a walk.
Ronnie, I've had the pleasure to see you play. I almost had a hole-in-one once too, but I was a little off. I ended up scoring a 7.
It was a very strange day, but it was a fun day. And Wayne, if you're out there, that's the buddy I met that we played together. He's a very nice gentleman, and we have something in common.
Well, I almost got a hole-in-one once, but I mistimed the windmill.
You did. I thought it was through the clown's face.
2 out and 2 on for Nick Evans, and he takes up and away. Evans walked and scored the Mets run in the first inning. And that dents the outside edge, 1-1.
Although Levon has given up to 6 runs, Wolf only 1 so far. Both pitchers look like they are not on top of the game. Obviously, statistics for Hernandez show that out, but Wolf has not been sharp either.
Well, Wolf has faced the Mets plenty. This is his 30th career start against the Mets. There are only 2 active pitchers who've made more starts against the Mets than Randy Wolf, and one of them is Levon Hernandez.
Wow.
The other one is John Smoltz.
As you say, Smoltz, absolutely.
One 2 to Evans, fouled away.
Who's 0-2, and if you look at his stats, he's not pitched particularly well. 5 runs, I think, in both games, so 10 total. But Boston people are so happy about the way he's pitching. Not walking guys, going right after guys. He's just a little off right now with his slider. So what an addition if he stays healthy.
And then what do they do? I mean, they have Penny pitching tonight, who's been great. So who are they going to dump?
Well, the great thing about it is when you have so many of those players, Matsusaka, of course, on the disabled list.
Right.
Clay Buchholz in AAA is having the best season of any pitcher in all of the AAAs. I think he's 9-1 or 9-2. Lots of strikeouts. gives you a real opportunity for a team that fancies itself a playoff team to trade one of those guys, and I think Penny would be the first guy.
Bouncing ball right back to Wolf, and so he gets out of 2-out trouble. So it's been all Dodgers early. When we come back, we'll be talking with Mets hitting coach Howard Johnson, live from the Mets dugout. We go to the third inning with the Dodgers leading 6-1, part of the Xerox business of baseball. We are so pleased to have with us from the Mets dugout, Mets hitting coach Howard Johnson. And Howard, these are different times for you. I mean, you're used to working with guys like Reyes and Beltran and Delgado, and now you've got a lineup of very different types of hitters. How has that changed your job over the last couple of months?
Well, I mean, not gonna kid you. I mean, it's a lot tougher, but you know, the challenge really is with David, just keeping him focused and not trying to do too much, and the other guys just making sure that they're just doing their thing and not trying to do too much as well. I mean, everybody's kind of in a different role right now, so it's an adjustment period.
You know, Howard, the theme for this team when it's going right is what it's doing tonight. Working the pitch count, trying to get the pitch count up to get in that bullpen. You guys are doing a good job early. But you've faced a lot of guys who've thrown a lot of strikes recently. Do you sometimes change the game plan on the run?
Absolutely, and that's something as a group we tried to do. We had a meeting yesterday and with the offensive guys and really just try to change our approach a little bit, be a little bit more aggressive early in the count. Because there are a lot of pitchers were just pouring strike one in, and we were having a hard time. You know, we were just kind of lethargic and not really, you know, on the offensive. And we got to try and make things happen, even though we're not at full strength. So that's kind of been a little bit of a change mentally. I think guys just trying to be a little more aggressive early in the count.
Howard, I know the tendency when things are not going well for most guys is to work harder. But you've got a lot of guys right now who are probably playing more than they expected to. Can you have them work too hard sometimes to try and get themselves out of a difficult spot?
Absolutely. They can work. They can overwork themselves, especially now, because the tendency is that as a team, when you're missing players and you're trying to create offense, you know, you kind of go outside the box a little bit, and when that happens, you know, it's not good. You're not going to have sustained, you know, consistent at bats, and you know, it's something that we've tried to monitor all year. The amount of work that our guys get in the cage, especially when they're not playing, want to make sure they have enough time watching the game and watching the other team. So it's something that we're aware of, and yeah, we have to monitor that, especially now.
Well, I have to say the players work hard, but your coaching staff might be the hardest working staff in baseball right now. You know what? I've never asked you this, Hojo.
Yeah.
Biggest influence, hitting philosophy.
Wow. I'd have to say Bill Robinson. I learned a lot from Bill. Just it wasn't so much the mechanics and this and that. It was really just the mindset. You know, Bill was had a way of making you feel like you could go up there and hit. And even though I knew I wasn't a great hitter, I had good days. I could hit the fastball, but you know, when you want your hitting coaches to make you feel like you got a chance to compete that night, and I've kind of taken that philosophy with me wherever I've coached, and hopefully the guys, you know, feel like when they go up to bat they have a chance to compete, and that's the main thing.
Howard, one more. I know fans get down sometimes, and I know you guys go to work every day thinking, what can I do to make things better? How do you keep from letting frustration seep in when things don't go well for an extended period of time?
Well, I think we have to continue to look, you know, not only in the present now, but in the future, and where we're going to be, you know, hopefully in a couple of weeks as we start getting players back off the disabled list. You know, we need to try and make sure that the guys on the field now stay healthy. They're playing a lot right now. Guys like Cora, they're not used to playing, you know, a lot of games like this. So just things we have to do. We have to make sure that David doesn't try and get too, you know, gets too excited in the box. Just let him take his walks, let him get his base hits, and not trying to do too much and carry the team. And really just, you know, guys like Evans and Murphy, and just, you know, kind of nurse them along. Make sure they're learning along the way. That, you know, our future is good. If we can just stay healthy and kind of hang in there for a while and stay positive, we'll be in good shape.
All right, Howard. Well, thanks very much, and hang in there.
And by the way, Hojo, you're a great hitter.
Thanks, RJ. Appreciate it.
Thanks to Howard Johnson for joining us from the Mets dugout as Livan Hernandez works through the third. Let's take a look at the view from the Pepsi porch with Kevin Burkhardt.
Well, Gary, you know, we've talked a lot about this Mets defense, obviously, but the one thing they haven't had to worry about is a bad hop. And, you know, all year long, the infielders have been raving about this field here at Citi Field, and I figured I wanted to find out why. So I talked to Bill Deacon, the head groundskeeper, today, and asked him what makes a good field and what went into this field. And he said there are a couple of things. When they were at Shea, he noticed that the field, the dirt would come up in clumps. He said, you know, guys would make movements with their cleats or anything like that, and it would come up in clumps. So they wanted to change that. And basically the way to change that is the mixture of clay, the mixture of silt, and the mixture of sand. He said Shea, the dirt, was much too sandy. So here at Citi Field, it's a 53% sand mixture, 26% clay, and then the rest is silt. And basically what that makes is a completely smooth infield for the most part. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, certainly the way they take care of it, but the most important thing, Bill Deacon told me, is water. He said they watered a ton. He said when they leave here at night, it's almost like this place is a lake. That's how much water it takes, because with that mixture, it can almost turn into concrete if it gets so hard. So they watered it a ton at night. When they get in for a night game around 1 o'clock, they water it an absolute ton to keep it manicured. But a lot of the infielders around the league have told me it's one of the best fields, and that's why the mixture, clay, silt, and sand. Bill Deacon getting it done along with the grounds crew guys.
And as if Bill's job wasn't hard enough, he's got a new baby at home, too.
Oh.
Born last week. So he's out there at 1 o'clock watering, and he's getting home and changing diapers. David Wright lines one into right field, and David is 2 for 2. Well, this has been the season for David. Cold streaks, and hot streaks. 2 hits yesterday, 2 more hits today. Hot streak starting.
But all of his hot streaks are surrounded by his ability to hit the ball the other way. This pitch was almost in, and he just inside outs it to right field. Let's see where it hits the plate. It's supposed to be in. No, it catches more of that outside part of the plate, but nice job of going down after that ball. Is David Wright. He'll get some hits to the right side, and you're not sure if he's out of his streak, but when he drives the ball to right field, then you know he's coming around.
Now Sheffield takes a strike.
For IO TV pitch differential, supposed to be inside. It's almost 8 to 12 inches on the other side of the plate, so Wolf missed badly.
Wolf's had to do a lot of work early in this game. He's given up 4 hits. He's walked 2. He's thrown a lot of pitches, but he's working with a 5-run lead. Sheffield drove in the only Met run with a single to center in the first. And he takes up and in 1-1.
You know, to add to Kevin's report, it had been raining for 3 straight days. You guys were on the road with the team, and I had to come here to the ballpark to do something for the Mets. I came to the ballpark and doing this deal. I look out on the field, and like I said, it's torrential downpour.
Sheffield hits one to right field, and Ethier lines it up. 1 away.
And the tarp was not on the field. So that adds to what Kevin was saying about Bill Deacon, is that they love it wet here when the guys aren't here. They love the field as wet as can be because they were just letting it rain the entire time on the field. So it really is one of the reasons that, as Kevin said, this field is so great.
You know, Ryan, that's a good observation, and it's kind of like baking a cake almost. You know, when you bake a cake, you stick the little pin in. If it comes out with nothing on it, it's done. Well, with the field, Bill says they stick a key or something like that in the infield. If it comes out perfectly clean, it's good. If there's any clumps of dirt, they got to rework and make it so that it doesn't come out like that. So it's a perfection type thing.
I think, Kevin, we're going to take it one step further. I'm going to put you at third base with a glove. I'm going to rifle some fungos down at third base so you can see how well it plays.
The best infield in the world won't help the result of that. I got news for you. This is the reason why I have the microphone in my hand, Ronnie.
Tough to catch those grounders with that mic, you know. 2-0 to Tatis, who flied out to the warning track in left field his first time with Ryan Church on deck. Well, fields have changed a lot since you started playing in the big leagues, Ronnie. I mean, it used to be that you'd go to Atlanta and it was like playing on a rock pile.
Oh, it was brutal, just bad. You had literally, you would hope that your team made maybe 1, 2, 3 errors. That was a pretty good night because you knew they were going to get bad hops. And the guys would prepare for it. I mean, they literally would field differently. They would make sure that they always in front of the ball. Never ever took, you know, side saddle, played it off to the side. Just couldn't afford to do that.
You know, it's interesting because not only have Major League Diamonds gotten better, but for a lot of guys who are growing up in the States and playing ball, the Little League and the high school fields have gotten better too. It's almost as though they're not used to dealing with the bad hops that most kids used to grow up with and major leaguers had to deal with as well. Of course, that's very different from guys, you know, coming from less privileged backgrounds, different countries. As Tatis fouls it back, and I wonder sometimes whether that might give an advantage to players who are coming from, you know, say from the Dominican, playing on a rubble-strewn field, the ability to be able to adjust to hops differently than maybe a more privileged kid in the States is.
Yeah, like San Pedro de Macorís. I was talking to Tony Fernandez about that when I played in the day, and he said playing on these fields is just a joy because considering how you had to field the baseball and what condition your glove was, and maybe you had spikes that were 2 sizes too big.
Tatis rifles one into left field for a base hit. Wright will go first to third. Manny's thrown to second. Tatis coming, and he slides in safely. A 2-base hit for Tatis. And the Mets have second and third and 1 out.
Boy, there's some fighting these Mets tonight, even though down 6-1. Some good at-bats against Wolf, and some good hustle from Tatis as Manny makes the correct play, throws it to second base. And boy, I'll tell you, Tatis almost came off that bag. As we've seen, beautiful to watch, hustling right out of the box. Fernando Tatis has a lot of old school play in the way he plays the ball game. See how he comes off the bag here? And Hudson, of course, with the alert tag. Did he get him? Nope. Kept that right foot on the bag.
Pop-up slide that almost popped sideways. But a good night with the bat for Tatis. He's hit the ball well twice. Now 2 in scoring position for Church, who takes a curveball for a strike. Ryan grounded out to second base his first time. Dodgers, of course, playing the infield back with a 5-run lead. And Church bounces the curveball foul, and again Wolf gets ahead of him 0-2.
To get back to those fields real quick, Gary, a lot of these municipalities are putting in these synthetic fields that players are fielding on. And if you've ever been out there with your sons, the field is probably half the speed of what these fields, these skin infields, these dirt infields are. So a lot of the kids now growing up on really slow fields.
And that's going to be another detriment as they work their way up the ladder. That's the lip of the infield grass.
Almost even with the grass, just perfect. You're never going to get really a ball that's going to jump up in your body. It's just going to glide very easily off that turf.
Grounded to short. That'll get a run in. Vercal throws out Church as Wright comes in to score, and now it's 6-2 LA. So Church drives in a run, his 22nd of the year, to chip away as Tatis moves over to third. Now 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position tonight.
You know, those are good at bats. You know, at home you're probably seeing yourself, boy, you know, he can get a hit, he made an out, but you know, you can chip away. You don't have to get all the runs back. Chip away, get in a position where a bloop and a blast can get you back in this game. Livondo's going to have to do his job and stop any more scoring by the Dodgers.
Well, it's certainly early enough in the game. We're only in the 3rd inning. And despite the fact that Levon gave up 6 runs over the first 2 innings. As you look at the Reds having expanded their lead over the Phillies, Edwin Encarnacion, recently back from the disabled list, just hit a home run after Chase Utley hit his 20th earlier for the Phils. And of course the Reds will be here tomorrow night. That's began their season in Cincinnati.
They'll face All-Star Johnny Cueto, right, on Saturday or Sunday.
He will have a down effort to bounce back from. He had that huge first inning he gave up in Philadelphia. Santos pops one foul, backing out of play.
Well, he is a quality pitcher. You never want to have to face a guy after coming off that kind of start.
Fernando Nieve against Bronson Arroyo tomorrow. It's been a hot or cold year for Arroyo. He's had great games and horrible games. Santana goes Saturday against Cueto, and then Mike Caufrey in the final game before the All-Star break against Aaron Harang has gotten no run support at all this year. 1-2 to Santos. Way outside. Martin has to lunge for it. It's been a hot and cold night for Randy Wolf. Got himself a comfortable lead, but it's been an uncomfortable night on the mound. 72 pitches already with 2 out in the 3rd. And Santos pokes one foul.
.47 strikes, 27 balls for Wolf. When you get to your 260th start, what happens a lot when you don't have your great stuff, pitches like that in the past you'd get a strikeout or an out on are fouled off and they stay in the at bat.
Changeup strikes out Santos to end the inning. First strikeout of the night for Wolf. Mets get 1 run back. We head to the 4th. Top of the batting order coming up for the Dodgers, who lead 6-2. Finding out.
It didn't matter.
We go to the fourth inning. Dodgers leading 6-2. Jonas Schwartz and Joe Beningo will debate the latest from this Mets-Dodgers series, the Yankees, and all things New York sports as they take the seat at the round table with the Daily News writers behind the stories on Daily News Live, presented by Citi, weekdays at 5 only on SNY. Part of the big crowd at Citi Field on a Thursday night. Does not feel like July, does it? There's Rafael Furcal ripping one into right field. Sheffield got turned around and it goes over his head. Furcal racing for second, and he's in standing with a leadoff double. Third hit of the night for Furcal as Sheffield just got frozen out in right field.
Well, again, we saw it last night with Ramirez, just stopped and does not have the ability or the speed anymore to make up for a simple mistake there by Sheff. Ball goes over his head, and you know, for a fly ball pitcher, you compromise tonight because you have Evans, a first baseman, in left field. Sheffield playing right, left field is his position in this ballpark, and Church is playing center, who's a right fielder. So, not that these things should happen, but you can see why they happen.
Well, the top three hitters in the Dodger order tonight for Furcal, Ethier, and Ramirez are a combined 6 for 6 now. Ethier has singled and walked, moved into the number 2 slot by Joe Torre tonight because he's been struggling, and well, seems like everything Joe touches this year turns to gold. With Manny Ramirez waiting on deck, already 2 RBIs tonight. 1-1 to Ethier. Andre Ethier recently put together a 3-home run game for the Dodgers. You see who hit 3 home runs last night?
No.
Andrew Jones for the Texas Rangers, and he had 2 more at bats after that. Popped up and struck out the last 2 at bats. The former Dodger, they ate his contract, happy to get rid of him as Ethier goes down swinging for the first out of the inning. But Andrews bounced back and had a decent season. He's got 14 home runs for Texas now. Well, here's Manny. He's only seen 2 pitches tonight, 2 hits, 2 RBIs.
First pitch fastball, hit up the middle. First pitch slider, hit the left field. And I doubt if Levon's going to throw a strike, and I doubt that Levon will swing here. Very rarely do you see hitters swing at 3 first pitches in a row, even if they're 2 for 2.
And Manny does not go out of the strike zone much. Very disciplined hitter. As Levon throws it 1.5 feet outside.
No defense. This is what makes him so great. See this defense? It's almost straight away because you never know where he's going to hit the ball. He's hit one up the middle. He's pulled one. Last night his home run was to right field. It's almost like you can't defense him.
Well, you've got first base open in this spot. I think I would be tempted right now if I were Levon just to walk him and take your chances with Blake. There's Manny's ranks among active players. Those 535 home runs, 16th all time, just 1 behind Mickey Mantle now for 15th place.
I'd take it further than that. I would not even mess with him. This would be an intentional walk.
Yeah. Well, it's a semi-intentional walk. It's 3-0 now, and might as well just give him all 4.
I'll tell you right now, he'll be hitting 3-0.
I don't know why you're throwing a pitch here. So 4 that weren't even close, and the semi-intentional walk puts Ramirez aboard. 3rd walk given up by Levon, and so Casey Blake will come up with 2 men on. Mets bullpen is quiet right now. There was action earlier. Tim Redding was up in the 2nd inning. But right now, Jerry Manuel and Dan Warthen counting on Levon to settle in. But there's not been much settling yet. He has had very few easy outs. Lakes hit the ball hard twice, lined out to center and single to left to drive in a run. And he swings and misses at the first pitch slider.
That's the best slider Levant's thrown all night, so maybe he's starting to get the feel for it again. Watch this break. Late, down and away, off the plate.
Dodgers already 5 for 9 tonight with runners in scoring position. 1-1 to Blake.
Levant's probably unique in the staff, and when he struggles this way, Jerry will still stay with him because of past history. Sometimes he can work himself back into good graces and started getting some outs.
Line right to Castillo, flip to Cora, not in time. Just back is for call.
Boy, that was a close play at second base. Nice play, timing the throw here to Alex Cora. Let's see if he gets his foot in before the hand. Don't get blocked out. Don't get blocked out. Boy, I thought he got him.
John Hirschbeck right on top of the play to make the call, and the wrong call. And Jerry Manuel out to argue. I mean, you can't have a better look at it than John Hirschbeck did. He had perfect positioning and just made the wrong call. I mean, this is something that is really troubling. We have seen this so many times this year on the bases. Wrong calls by umpires for no reason at all. Not because they're blocked, not because they're out of position, just wrong calls. It seems to be an epidemic.
And you can't excuse this call because this call, you can see the foot is clearly in front of the hands coming to the base.
And Jerry may get himself run here. Maybe not. Like he was going back and trying to get himself thrown out. Castillo incredulous.
Bewilderment.
Well, the inning should be over. Here's your Coors Light freeze cam just to hammer home the point. Bad call by John Hirschbeck, and the inning continues. By the way, that's at least 4 line drive outs against Livan Hernandez to go with the 10 hits he's given up tonight. Now Loney, who's 0 for 1 in a walk, he lined out to center field his last time up, and he takes Loney inside ball 1.
You know, if Loney gets a base hit, Jerry might be back out there at second base before Loney gets on the bases.
Well, Hirschbeck's a very, very good umpire.
Yes, and listen, it's a human game, and the umpires are going to make mistakes. That's how it's happened. How it happens.
You don't think we should give them our Coors Light freeze cam? Could you imagine if every call in baseball were reviewable, how long it would take to play a game?
Oh, it's long enough, by the way. You know, going back to the umpires, I mean, they're going to make mistakes. The problem is that it's not excusable, because just like the players, this is the major leagues, this is the best you got to get it right. It's just how it works. Good
changeup by Livan, 2-1. Well, you know, the old saying about umpires is you have to start out perfect and then get better.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like at home, we mention it sometimes, don't we, folks? Sometimes when we don't mention umpires at all during the whole game, that's their best games. And it's a difficult job, but, you know, this is the best of the best. And that call's got to be made.
Well, I think without any statistical backup, what I would say is that over the last 10 years, as umpiring has evolved, they merged the 2 umpiring corps. They had the 22 resignations. A new crop of umpires came in. They put Questek in. I think the ball and strike calls have actually gotten more consistent over that period of time. But now you're seeing the bases become an issue, which they weren't nearly as much before. And who knows why, as Loney draws a walk and now the bases are loaded. Maybe they've spent so much time worrying about ball and strike calls that there's been less emphasis elsewhere.
Well, I also think that there's some inner paranoia as you see the pitch count almost same balls to strike ratio. There's some little inner paranoia because for an umpire now, and we looked at it, how many times we looked at it? 4, 5, 6 times? Just to show you that was the wrong call, is that it's hard to play baseball. It's hard to manage. Just the same, it's hard to umpire if you're a little paranoid out there about getting reviewed. And you're going to get reviewed. That's how it goes. Games change.
You're less paranoid if you get it right.
Yeah.
Russell Martin pulls one foul.
You're right.
I mean, we all make mistakes, let's face it, but you know, it makes such a huge difference in a game. Levon Hernandez should have been in the dugout 2 batters ago without question, and now he's still out there and in danger of this game blowing up on him.
Well, it's the collateral damage. Elmer DeSenz has to get up. His extra pitches have to be thrown by Levon Hernandez. You're in harm's way here of not ever being able to get back into this game if Martin's able to get a base hit.
Martin's 0 for 2 tonight. Lined out to Tatis at first base his last time up.
Well, Levon has not recognized that he's not going to get any of those close pitches from Marty Foster. So what do you do if you're a pitcher and you're not getting pitches? You're going to have to start getting these guys out the first 3 pitches, making them put the ball in play, because if you get deep in the count, you're not going to get your pitch.
2-1 now to Martin. Mercala's at third, Ramirez at second, and Loney at first with 2 out. 6-2 LA. The Dodgers with 10 hits and 4 walks in the first 4 innings against Levon Hernandez. And Martin up in a game-breaking spot here. And he lines one to the right side. That goes through. Mercal scores. Here comes Manny. The throw goes to third base. And Loney is out at third. The inning is over. Larry Boa exploding at the third base umpire Wally Bell. Joe Torre will come out to argue as well. Both runs count before the tag is made. It's a 2-run single for Russell Martin. Here's the play at third base. And looked like Wright might have gotten the tag on the side of Loney before the hand hit the bag, as Torre continues to argue. The Dodgers take advantage of the bad call, lead 8-2. Time for Matt Cerrone from MetsBlog.com at the Verizon studio for a quick update on what the fans are thinking. Call at second, a good call at third.
Well, you can see right here that David Wright gets the tag right on the armpit, or under the armpit, before Loney reaches and touches that bag. So Boa and Torre wrong, Wally Bell right. Nice tag by David as he came up to meet that throw from Gary Sheffield. Strong throw from Gary.
Well, it put an end to the inning, but you know, you hate to belabor the point, but Hirschbeck's bad call at second winds up costing the Mets 2 runs.
Absolutely.
And perhaps takes a game that the Mets might have had a chance to come back in and turns it into a much more difficult affair. Now Alex Cora leads off the bottom of the 4th. Cora bounced to short his first time, and he takes a strike. It'll be Cora, then the pitcher's spot. Argenis Reyes has come out on deck to pinch hit. I don't think we've even mentioned tonight. We should have, and we apologize. Fernando Martinez placed on the disabled list today because of inflammation in his knee. And that's why Reyes, who was shipped out a couple of days ago, is back in a Mets uniform. Pat Mish up in the Mets bullpen. It's been 5 days since Fernando Martinez played, so they can backdate his DL. As Cora lifts one along the left field line, and Manny goes over, slides, but can't get to it. It's a foul ball.
Manny hasn't been here long, but he's figured out how to have any chance of making these plays down the left field line is with the pop-up slide. Although it helps to keep your eye on the ball as you're sliding into the wall.
Well, Manny played all those years at Fenway Park, where you have almost no room between the line and the wall down the left field side. And of course, Alex Cora, his former Boston teammate, speaks nothing but highly of Manny as a teammate. And most of the guys who played with Manny say the same thing. Down to first base. And Loney with the lead, and Wolf just got to the bag in time. Not exactly a great lead by James Loney, but Wolf able to bail him out.
Got the lob here from Loney, but luckily caught it, stepped right in the middle of that bag, and was not spiked by Alex Cora.
Too much hang time on that toss.
Loney could have been a pitcher. He's a great first baseman. Never would have been an option quarterback. Oh, God.
That's a 15-yard loss. So here's Argenis Reyes to bat against Wolf, the only right-handed bat available on Jerry Manuel's bench tonight. Remember, the Mets are going with 13 pitchers right now, so they only have 4 bench players. And the other 3 on the bench tonight, all left-handed: Reed, Murphy, and Schneider. By the way, speaking of Reed, you mentioned it last night, Ronnie, that Jeremy should get some more playing time, and Jerry Manuel kind of said today that that's going to happen, because especially now with Fernando Martinez on the disabled list, Jerry would much prefer to keep Church in right field, and that makes Jeremy the best center field option.
And of course, Wolf, you talked about the numbers against left-handers. A nice time for Jeremy to sit tonight, but I think personally my feeling is gives you a great defensive player. He gets enough hits, got a little speed. You know, he's a guy right now in your challenge. Why not cart him out in center field every day, at least against right-handed pitching?
2-2 to Reyes. It's only Ivan Hernandez out of this game. Last 2 starts, 7 innings, 15 runs against Livan. Curveball misses 3-2.
And to take it a little further, when Angel Pagan comes back, I would still play Jeremy Reed and have Pagan hit against the left-handers. So have, you know, Pagan and Reed share center field.
The hope is that Pagan should be ready, if not right after the All-Star break, then shortly thereafter, long before any of the Mets' more important offensive players return. At least that's the way it figures right now. Hudson in front of that ground ball. And that retires Reyes 2 away. So 2 up and 2 set aside for Randy Wolf. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Wise. Hey, Met fans, want to help break a world record? Get a ticket to tomorrow's Mets game for the Wise Big City Crunch.
What is that?
I believe everybody's going to get a bag of chips.
Okay.
And at some point early in the game, they're going to ask that everybody crunch one at the same time. 40,000 potato chips being crunched. God only knows how it'll sound. Ethier flies one out to right. Castillo retired. Wolf has his first 1-2-3 inning. 4 in the books at Citi Field on a spring-like night in July. 8-2 Dodgers. A trivia question for tonight. There have been only 4 player managers since 1975. Can you name them? One of them was a Met.
I got it. Let me see. I got it. Let me write it down.
The lovely Joanna Darling in the building.
And for you people who don't know, that's a real upset in 2 ways. One, that she's in the building watching a game, and 2, she got here before the game started.
That's amazing. Normally 4th or 5th inning is her.
That's early too. That's early too. She leaves about the 4th or 5th on that 7 train.
Pat Mish comes on to pitch for the Mets in the 5th inning.
Well, Mish has been outstanding for the Mets. What I like about him out of the bullpen are a couple things. One, he throws strikes, and also I like his good breaking ball. That curveball over the top has great break to it.
A purplish hue to the sky, like a Prince kind of a night. Orlando Hudson has the big blow in this game, a 3-run double back in the 1st inning. That gave the Dodgers a 4-0 lead at the time. Tries to hold, takes a strike, and it's 0-2. Levon went 4 innings, allowed 8 runs, 11 hits, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, and his ERA for the year now up to 5.10. Hudson dribbles 1 foul. Is that hit by Hudson?
Well, that's a big hit. That ball down in the strike zone. Not a bad pitch, but able to hit that ball over the head of Evans. A couple of moments that the Mets, you know, if they had had their regular people in the outfield, not to say you're going to make that catch, because that would have been very difficult. They have a shot at it.
Well, I think that's one thing that is certainly going to have to draw attention as the Mets plan for the future. And that is that in this ballpark, in this outfield, you have got to have some mobile people. It's very much like, as Cora moves over to make the play behind the bag and throw at Hudson, it's very much like what the Rockies realized soon after they started at Coors Field. So much expanse out there. As much as you want to favor the offense and have the bombers out there, if you don't have some fleet-footed people in the outfield, you're going to give up a ton of extra base hits.
And take it from a guy that in his later years, pitching was not my friend. I needed, and Hernandez is on, you know, he's on the other side of his career. You need everything to go perfect in that way, Gary. You know, you need your team to score some runs, and you need really great defense, because it's so important that you just don't have the pitches to put people away in a way that you can get outs by yourself via the strikeout.
And that's why when people talk about finding some reinforcements for this team right now, they're very much focused on the big bopper, the Adam Dunn, the Matt Holliday. And that would be great in a certain way. But I've got a feeling that understanding this ballpark the way Omar Minaya does, he might be just as focused on the Niger Morgan types. The guys who can cover some ground out there and be the small ball kind of players who would fit this ballpark.
And you're going to need, you know, I know he was traded and the Mets got Jeremy and J.J. Putz, but Andy Chavez kind of character off the bench is who you're going to need to come in and play defense. It's going to be so important. I think Jeremy did an outstanding job earlier in the season when you had your kind of set lineup with Beltran Church and Daniel Murphy in left field. Speed is going to be your friend here in this ballpark.
Kemp lines one, and this one's caught by Cora. And finally, the Mets find a way to get Matt Kemp out. Well, Kemp was 2 for 2 tonight and 7 for 9 in the series before that line out. And now there are 2 out in the inning.
By the way, Matt Holliday came here. Holliday. He'd be sad for the second he saw left field, because he is challenged as a left field. He can hit though.
Well, he was a better hitter in Colorado than in Oakland.
He was an infielder at some point too, wasn't he?
By the way, he still hasn't touched home plate.
That's right.
Talking about that playoff game 2 years ago.
That's right.
In San Diego when he scored the winning run, did a face plant and never touched the plate.
Well, everything came up perfect for them this year, and I mean that year. And I'll tell you, forever going to be problems for GMs because they're going to look at that and say, you know what, you're never out of it.
21 out of 22. That's not bad. Good inning for Mish. 1, 2, 3. Halfway through. 8-2 Dodgers.
Supervisor of umpires. Threw him out of the ballgame. Yeah, look at this. Can you believe this?
Well, that was a high point in that 1988 League Championship Series for the Mets, getting Jay Howell ejected for having pine tar in his glove. Didn't go so well after that.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Oh, you know, it's sad because really because of some things that happened on the field and off the field. 86, 87, 88 should have been the Mets years, and if the Mets teams would have come through, would have been considered one of the best teams that ever played. Instead, we're one of the best teams that had a great year. There's a big difference.
And as a group, have you guys ever talked about that? About what could have been? Because I know fans talk about it, and the media talked about it a lot in the immediate aftermath, particularly after that group started being broken up after 88, 89. But do you guys ever talk about that when you get together?
Yeah, usually we are together once or twice. We've been put together more in the past few years.
Ethier into foul ground and a nice play right up against the sidewall to retire Evans.
The reason being it was the anniversary right of the 86 team, and of course last year that wonderful moment that the Mets provided all the older players here with the the final day at Shea Stadium. Yes, there's some absolute melancholy to a lot of the players that played those years that we did not do it 3 years in a row. It really is. And there's, I told you all the time, the 88 game, the 7th game, I'm haunted by that game. I don't ever, people come up to me and say, I remember that 85 game you pitched. All right. I know that, 88 game when you clinch against Philly. Thanks, appreciate it. To me, haunted by that game. And I always will be. It's it went away so quickly, and for some of us, it was a sign that maybe it's over. That was our shot. We had our moment, and we didn't come through.
I think there's a feeling generally that 87, the team gets a mulligan because of all the injuries and lack of availability of the pitchers that year. As Blake throws out right for the second out. Do you guys feel that way, as though 87 you can understand why you didn't, but 88 is different?
No, I didn't feel that way because until I broke my thumb, I felt that it wasn't a burden. I thought, what a great story this is. Without a lot of our guys, if we ever come through on this year, there's no telling how many championships we might win. So I never felt like that. But 88, was the year that really killed us. I don't know how many games we won in the regular season. Maybe 100.
100, yeah.
Yeah, 100 games in the regular season. And you know, not
and
as
you beat the Dodgers 10 out of 11.
10 out of 11 that year, and we walked through them the entire year. But they had magic working, and Oral had one of the finest years, Oral Hershiser, that any pitcher's ever had in the history of the game. And you know, we just haunted by that '88 series because, and in fact, when I was traded to the Oakland A's,
yeah, Sheffield lines one in the left center, and that'll go all the way to the wall. Sheffield with his second hit of the night, a 2-out double. 8th double of the season for Gary.
Well, it's nice to see Gary now. 2 breaking balls from Wolf. He has been able to make the adjustment, double clutch, and this one, unlike the last one, is a bullet. It's safe to say now, we're not seeing him in his prime. I don't think anyone hits the ball any harder than Gary Sheffield.
And especially when you take into consideration how hard he has always swung and how little he has struck out. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I think, you know, getting back to that '88 series, when I was traded over to Oakland, and to put a little caveat on this, I was talking to Tony La Russa one night, and we were just hanging out, and I said, what happened in that series against the Dodgers? You know, they're all beat up, whatever. He said, we won our series early, and we sat back and we said, we cannot wait. We are the best team in baseball. We can't wait to take on the big, bad New York Mets that everyone says is the best team. So then the Dodgers won, and we didn't know what to do. Who are the Dodgers? Who are they playing? Mickey Hatcher's batting fourth? And he said that he believes that his team took those Dodgers lightly, and they would have never taken us lightly, of course, because they wanted to face us.
Well, you remember what Bob Costas said on the eve of that World Series, and Bob, by the way, is in the building tonight. He said the Dodgers have one of the worst offensive teams that's ever played in a World Series, and they won in 5 games.
Right.
Tatis doubled his last time up. And he goes down swinging, foul tipping one into Martin's glove, and Wolf's got his 5 innings in with a chance to qualify for a win with a big lead. We head for the 6th, top of the order coming up for the Dodgers, who lead 8-2. The lights of Citi Field highlighting the 6th inning recap, brought to you by Ocella. Dodgers put up a 4 spot in the first against Livan Hernandez, who leaves early for his 2nd straight start. 15 runs in 7 innings in those last 2 games. Top of the batting order has been huge for the Dodgers, for Call and Ramirez and Ethier. A combined 6 for 7 tonight, as Call leads off and takes ball 1. Let's check in with Kevin.
Well, guys, Joe Torre, of course, back in New York doing his thing now in his 2nd year with the Dodgers, and just as comfortable as ever, as he always was, with the media and talking about a range of different things today. But he got on a tangent, which I thought was pretty relating to the Mets. And Marty Noble asked him about infield. And, of course, that's been a discussion with everything that's gone on defensively for the Mets. And, Joe said, I, as a player, never liked infield because I always felt like my body would cool down a little bit and then I'd have to get it going, especially for a guy like me who has some sore parts. But he talked about the players today, and he said, well, there's a couple things. First of all, I think guys do actually a lot more work today than they did, as a walk issued here by Mr. Furcal to start it off for the Dodgers. He said, guys work a lot harder. They're in the video room. They're out here early working individually with coaches, things like that we didn't really do. But he was asked, what does he think is missing without infield? He thought actually the outfielder's arms. He thought there's a lot of throwing that gets missed without the infield practice. And then he was talking about the game itself and maybe what's the thing that he sees lacking the most in the game. Guys, he said base running. He said it's gotten to the point where if I could, I'd have a second base coach. And almost hinting on guys maybe that guys are maybe too reliant on coaches and not as much as the instinct category, which is where he was going with that, guys.
And I can see that because you go back to the developmental leagues where kids used to play and learn, and now they are so heavily structured and coached that maybe they don't get to think for themselves on the field as much as they used to. Is that a legitimate point?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's that there's some rules and fundamentals out there, but you also have to, if you start to rely, as Brian Stokes warms up, if you start to rely on your coaches and on charts, then you stop doing the homework. And what is the homework? Well, the homework would be for Carl. He's in an 8-2 game. He's looking at the outfield. He sees Sheffield in right field, are just pegged out. Loney at third base. Church has a good arm in center field. Evans is playing deep. He doesn't have the best arm because he's an infielder. Where's Corey? He's playing a little up the middle. You look around the field, and that's how your instincts. And what am I going to do if a base hit to right center? I'm going to go first or third. All that stuff runs through your head. Now, when you're a young kid and you're in high school, that tough stuff takes a long time to process, so you don't get through that whole Rolodex. But when you're a major leaguer, a guy like a Pujols, a guy that's really fundamentally sound, he goes through that Rolodex in less than 5 seconds.
Well, it's the same thing that a fielder does before every pitch. If the ball's hit to my left, what am I doing? If I hit to my right, if it's hit over my head, what am I doing in every circumstance that might come up once the ball is hit?
And it changes when it scores.
Right.
If the Dodgers are in the infield, they want to get one out every time. Sure out. Not try to make the fantastic play because it gets them closer, gets one more off the board, gets them closer to a win because they've got such a big lead.
Guys, I think to back up both of your points beautifully, Gary, at the lower levels, as far as learning instincts, and Ronnie, what you were saying there about paying attention. Joe was asked, with all that said and all the work that he feels being done today by the players, what can be done to improve their play? He said, watch more. Simple.
Double play ball. Cora and Castillo can't quite turn it. Ball not quite hit hard enough. So for Call, a race for the first out. Ethier aboard with one out. Time to check in with the studio, and Chris Carlin is standing by with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. All right, Chris, and with Manny Ramirez coming to the plate, Jerry Manuel opts for a right-hander. Pat Bish did a nice job. He'll exit, and Brian Stokes will come on. Minutes of what matters the most to you. The latest news on all things New York sports on Geico Sports Night tonight after the post game and at 1 a.m. right here on SNY. Brian Stokes brought in to face Manny Ramirez with 1 out and 1 on and works inside to Manny. 1-0.
Well, that's a nice start by Brian after Manny's been leaning out over that plate, brushing back a little bit. 33rd game for Brian Stokes this season.
Rough outing his last time out, gave up a couple of runs in 2/3 of an inning 2 nights ago. And Manny pops one up in foul ground. Back out of play, 1-1. Ramirez tonight 2 for 2 in a walk. He singled home a run in the first. He singled home a run in the second. Livan Hernandez pitched around him and gave him a 4-pitch walk in the fourth. Manny now 5 for 11 in the series with 6 runs batted in.
We saw that last night with Hudson, right? The line obliterated. The hitters go back as far as they can go.
Ever seen an umpire move a hitter who was too deep in the box?
No, and I find it very interesting that, you know, what if a pitcher decided to move up 3 inches from the mound and pitch from there? I bet you they noticed that then, wouldn't they? I mean, this is a former pitcher, right? So wham, mama.
Well, we once saw in Boston, Carl Everett was told to move further away from the plate because he was too close. Ron Kulpa was the umpire, and that led to a little conflagration with Everett delivering a headbutt to Mr. Kulpa. But, you know, Carl used to stand from the left side of the plate with his left foot pretty much behind home plate.
Yeah.
He was that close. And Kulpa drew a line with the bat and said, there's the line, and Everett went ballistic, as he occasionally did.
Short fuse.
Two-two. And it's outside, 3-2 to Ramirez.
Didn't Everett last year play out here in Long Island? I think he played for one of the teams in this area trying to make it back. Preston Wilson now is playing for the Long Island Ducks.
Carl Cross, a one-time Met, enormously talented.
Yes,
enormously talented.
A lot like Milton Bradley.
Yeah. Not quite as volatile
Yeah.
as Milton. Just a little different. Tatis holds against Ethier as Stokes tries to find a way against Manny Ramirez. 3-2 the count.
He's leaving town. He's getting closer and closer to the old Manny because that was a pitcher's pitch. And still the ability to foul it off. That's what those great hitters do, is they stay in the bat, they stay in the at bat, and then next thing you know, you make a mistake and you're rubbing up a new one.
Well, the Dodgers are heading to Milwaukee after today's game and have a weekend series with the Brewers.
By the way, the Dodger club, he had 50 games to get that helmet clean, didn't he? Look at that thing.
Don't believe that Manny was interested in having it clean. It was in the do not touch pile. This will be the 9th pitch of the at bat to Ramirez. And he fouls off another one.
Brian Stokes keeps throwing it harder, and Ramirez swinging harder.
Caveman baseball?
Yes, on both sides. Good job by Pat Mish.
Ethier has not been moving. Again, the 3-2. And he walked it. So a 10-pitch at bat, and Stokes walks Ramirez, and now the Dodgers have 2 men on, and that's 6 walks issued by Met pitching tonight after 9 last night.
Well, that is something that in the second half of the season, Dan Worthen and his staff they're going to have to get that under control. You cannot walk that many, and especially in this ballpark, you're going to have to be a very economical team with your pitches.
Only the Nationals pitching staff has walked more hitters now this year than the Mets pitching staff in the National League.
Those guys barely shave over there in Washington. They're so young.
Here's Casey Blake with 2 men on. By the way, a very unusual occurrence tonight in Houston. The Astros and the Nationals had a game earlier this season suspended because of rain in the 11th inning with the game tied 10-10. They finished the game tonight in Houston with Washington as the home team pulling off a walk-off win on the road.
Wow.
They won it.
That's funny.
They won it on an error by Miguel Tejada in the bottom of the 11th. It took them 7 minutes to complete the game.
So they got a walk-off win. They're celebrating, and people are booing.
Right. By the way, the winning pitcher, Joel Hanrahan of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's right. He was traded.
Swing and a miss at the changeup, and it's 1-2.
So that goes on his Washington stat.
Right.
Stats line.
As far as the stats are concerned, it's as though the game was played. What was it? May, April, whenever it was
played. That's the date.
Right. So if they had a winning streak going, the winning streak just got extended from May. They had a hitting streak. Whatever. It's as though the entire game was played when it originally was begun.
And Washington inspired. Now, does this mean they win 2 straight? If they won. No.
No. That was a win in May.
That's right. Because they're winning the second game 4-1.
With Houston as the home team.
Yes.
So that means the Nats can't get 2 walk-off wins. Chopped out to Cora. His only play will be to first. And that gets Blake for the second out. As the runners advance to second and third.
Boy, that was a nice play by Alex Cora. Those are not easy because those are more instinct reaction plays. As soon as it's in the air, the only way you're going to get him at first base is you got to get that short hop. 2 hands by Cora, who, boy, is about as fundamentally sound as anyone I've ever seen play this game. I don't know who taught him, but it taught him right. He and his brother, of course.
Older brother Joey, who's the bench coach for Ozzie Guillen in Chicago.
He's going to be a manager someday himself.
I think we may one day see the Coras managing against each other. Now James Loney with 2 in scoring position. He's walked twice tonight and lined out to center. And takes high from Stokes. Ethier at third. Ramirez at second with 2 out. Changeup misses. By the way, the Phillies just regained the lead from the Reds. That's been a back and forth game tonight. 7-6 Philadelphia. They're only in the 5th inning. Russell Martin on deck. And another changeup from Stokes. And now he's behind 3-0. Well, this one's taking on the air of that at bat that Manny Ramirez had back in the 4th inning when Levon pitched around him. First base open. See if Loney gets a strike here on 3-0. Nope, ball 4. And so the bases are full on 3 walks. And Dan Worthen will visit the mound before Stokes goes after Russell Martin. Let's answer our Aflac trivia question. We asked about player managers since 1975. Well, we know Joe Torre was one in New York.
Frank Robinson, Pete Rose, Don Kessinger. Wow.
I did not remember that.
I got the 3 everyone else got. I didn't get Kessinger.
Kessinger with the White Sox.
Oh, wow. Now he's a Cub, right? All those years?
Cub for many, many years. Of course, he was part of the '69 Cub team that the Mets overtook.
Where did he play for? He was an infielder, wasn't he?
Shortstop.
Yeah.
Len Beckert and Don Kessinger, the longtime double play combination for the Cubs. Pete Rose was a player manager for parts of 3 seasons with the Reds. Torrey for about 3 weeks here in New York before he finally retired in 1977. And Frank Robinson 75 and 76 with the Indians. So here is Martin, and he gets tied up, but it's inside 1-0. Third time tonight that Russell Martin has come to bat with the bases loaded. He struck out in the first, but then delivered a 2-run single in the fourth. And now he's got the bases full again. It has been a night for Dodger base runners. 11 hits and 8 walks. Did I overstate the case? Excuse me, 7 walks. Still, that's 18 base runners, and it's only the 6th inning. It's not a recipe for pitching success. There's a strike to Martin, 2-1. And Martin hits one sharply to short. Cora able to grab it, and that completes the inning. So 3 walks, and the Dodgers leave 3. Middle of the 6th now at Citi Field. It's been all LA. Here's your Bigelow other side of the diamond quote for tonight. And this is from Joe Torre back in 1975. He said, "I'd like to thank Felix Millan for making all this possible." After Felix went 4 for 4 with 4 singles, and Joe followed him each time by grinding into a double play.
Well, we talked to Felix. What did he say? Joe said to him, "Couldn't you hit a double?"
Well, this was the double play that ended last night's game. Hit into by Andre Ethier on the theme of double plays, enabling Frankie Rodriguez to celebrate. Omir Santos will be up after Ryan Church, who leads off in the home 6th inning. Church is 0 for 2, drove in a run with a ground out his last time up. Randy Wolf working into the 6th inning, and Church pops one up. Angling on the ball for Cowell, checking his surroundings and making the grab, 1 away. Like he took a glance to see if Manny was coming.
Yeah.
Figuring, I don't want to get run over by that freight train, but Manny was nowhere in the neighborhood.
It's 8-2, by the way. Manny's not coming. Tim Reddick warming up for the New York Mets.
Now it's Santos, who's 0 for 2 tonight and 2 for his last 26. He's grounded out and struck out. And Wolf, who is only 3-3 on the season, despite a 3.49 ERA, finds himself in a position to finally get himself a win, which has been a long time in coming. There's a nice curveball for a strike. Randy Wolf has not won a game since the 28th of May in Chicago. Since then, he's had 7 starts, 2 losses, and 5 no decisions. And Santos pops one up. And this time it's Hudson with the angle. And there are 2 out. Alex Cora, who's 0 for 2. Grounded out twice. If Cora can keep the inning going, Daniel Murphy would bat for the pitcher. Yamamoto, who's pitched in each of the first 2 games of the series, up in the Dodger bullpen. There's a nice shot of that visiting bullpen.
Finally get the pitchers right. Moto's done a lot of work in this game, working in the first 2 ball games.
This curveball for a strike, and Mota has been right on top of his game lately.
You know, we showed that Tom Seaver. I didn't know he penned it or named it the imperfect game when he had that perfect game here on this night.
Off the plate, and it's 2-2 to Cora.
A non sequitur for you people at home. Let me tell you that we've got a surprise for you later, so stay tuned. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you hear it later.
It's a big anniversary in Mets history tonight. Slap to third. And Casey Blake with the overhand toss to get Cora. A 1-2-3 inning for Wolf.
Ernie Banks is just one victim of his 11 strikeouts. Jim Qualls, a rookie outfielder, is up. A clean hit to left center field, and there goes the perfect game. But there's a standing ovation for Seaver by 59,000 fans.
One of the memorable moments in Mets history. 40 years ago tonight, Tom Seaver retiring the first 25 Chicago Cubs in a huge game in Mets history. 59,000 on hand. Seaver pitching in a game that he says he was just in as good a zone as he's ever been in, as Stokes comes inside and drills Orlando Hudson right in the knee. And that really hurt.
Boy, that's one of those right in that muscle above the kneecap that if you are a player, you don't want to let that pitcher know that he can knock you out of the game on that left leg. But, you know, as a manager, you almost want to take your star out and get some ice on it, because that was something. Interesting, Torrey talking to Santos there. That's unusual, isn't it?
Well, Hudson hit on the back leg, and with the big lead, there's no sense in the Dodgers even thinking about leaving Hudson in the game. And so gingerly down the stairs goes Orlando Hudson. And Juan Castro will come in to run for him. That's the first batter that Brian Stokes has hit this season, and only the second time Hudson has been hit. So the Dodgers have a leadoff base runner. Castro now on to pinch run. And Matt Kemp, who has had a remarkable series, will come to bat. Kemp 2 for 3 tonight, 7 for 10 in the 3 games. You know, every Met fan remembers that Jimmy Qualls broke up Tom Seaver's bid for a perfect game 40 years ago tonight. What very few probably remember is how that 9th inning started. Seaver's working on a perfect game. Mets have a 4-0 lead. The first batter up in that 9th inning was Randy Hundley, the Cubs catcher, father of Todd, later to be a Met. And Randy Hundley, leading off the 9th inning, tried to bunt for a hit, and Seaver threw him out. And what I recall is that there was very little attention paid to that. That nobody seemed to be up in arms about the fact that Hundley had tried to bunt for a hit in that situation. Here's Hundley.
Well, in reading articles about that game, Seaver was a great fielder, fielded that cleanly, probably was happy to take that first out, is that there was some booing from the crowd, but you're talking about the media talking about bunting for a hit with a no-hitter, because if you did it now in a 4-0 game, you'd be vilified as a hitter.
Even if you did it in the 7th inning, much less leading off in the 9th inning. Now, I don't know if there's a reason why anybody should be upset. I mean, as a pitcher, how would you feel about that?
I wouldn't feel that way, to tell you the truth. I mean, you know, part of the game is bunting, and you know, I've only had a couple of 3 or 4 no-hitters into the 8th inning, and I would never feel that way. If the hitter was trying to get on base, I always thought I was a good enough fielder that you're giving me a gimme out. Thank you very much.
Randy Wolf left in the game here to bat. He's got 109 pitches already, batting here in the 7th inning, up there to bunt.
Remember, I had that no-hitter in the game where the Dodgers came back. Sorry, the Cardinals came back in 1987, and Vince Coleman bunted. But never, even though I broke my thumb, I never thought that was a bad play, because he was that was part of his game, was bunting and speed.
What inning was that?
I think it was the 6th.
So that's still early enough.
I believe
that it certainly wouldn't get anybody's hackles raised. With Rafael Furcal waiting on deck.
Jimmy Qualls was only in his 18th big league game. He got that hit.
Well, Seaver 3 times as a Met carried no hitters into the 9th inning. In fact, he once got to 2 out in the 9th against the Cubs at Wrigley Field, and it was broken up by Joe Wallace. But that was a little different because it was a scoreless game. And so even if he had completed 9 innings with a no hitter, he still would have had to go out there for the 10th. And the other one was against the Padres. Leron Lee broke up the no-hit bid in the 9th.
Is that when he? Oh no, he had one game where he struck out the last 10, right?
That was in 1970 against the Padres when he struck out 19, and struck out the last 10 in a row as Wolf strikes out trying to bunt for the first time.
Ironically, Seaver would have 5 one-hitters as a Met. Talking about the other no-hitters are broken up, but he did pitch a no-hitter
for the Reds. A lot of pitchers who have pitched for the Mets have pitched no-hitters.
You know, Coney with the perfect game, Dwight Gooden, of course, with his no-hitter.
Here's Furcal, who's been on base 4 times in a row. 2 doubles, a single, and a walk for Furcal, who scored 3 runs today.
Did forget that other guy that was pretty good at the no-hitter, Nolan Ryan.
Well, he had 7 of them after he left the Mets, but I mean, the list goes on and on. Mike Scott.
right.
And, you know, there were plenty of guys who pitched no-hitters before they became Mets. Brett Saberhagen taken for a strike, 1-2.
It is pretty interesting that with all the pitching depth that they've had here, that they haven't been lucky once.
It's one of the great ironies in baseball. And it shows how quirky no-hitters can be. I mean, the Houston Astros came into the league the same year as the Mets, and I believe the Astros have had 9 no-hitters. But how about this? The Mets came into the league in '62. They've never had a no-hitter. The San Diego Padres came into the league in 1969. They've never had a no-hitter, and they've never had a player hit for the cycle. Wow. In 40 years. Of course, the Padres had a pitcher. That's a foul tip by Furcal, a pitcher who was working on a no-hitter and was taken out for a pinch hitter. Clay Kirby. In either the first or second year of the Padres' existence, Preston Gomez was the manager. They were down 1-0. I think it was the 8th inning. And he took Kirby out for a pinch hitter, and the entire city of San Diego went crazy. It's like, how can you do this? We got a team that's going nowhere. They're an expansion team. You got a kid working on a no-hitter, and you take him out of the game?
We're going to lose. Give us something.
Too high, 2-2.
You know, to really put it in perspective, as James McDonald starts warming up for the Dodgers, how great Mr. Seaver was, if you don't know already. This is the 40th year anniversary. We're what, July 9th? That victory that night is 14th. Wow.
Well, he won 25 that year.
Still, I mean,
back-to-back strikeouts for Stokes as he gets Furcal, who's retired for the first time tonight.
14 is a good year for anyone, and he had it by July 9th. 2 strikeouts in a row for Brian Stokes.
By the way, if you haven't gotten this week's copy of Sports Illustrated, Mr. Seaver is on the cover along with Nolan Ryan, part of their Where Are They Now annual feature.
Well, I hope it doesn't jinx the Texas Rangers and the wine.
I'm sure the wine will be just fine.
Good.
I don't know about the Rangers. Although if they got 3 home runs from Andrew Jones last night, they're going pretty good. Andre Ethier takes a strike. Ethier tonight is 1 for 3 and a walk. He's scored 2 runs. Castro the pinch runner at second, and Kemp at first with 2 out. 8-2 Dodgers. We're in the 7th. Stokes the 3rd Met pitcher of the night. And Stokes has had an interesting run so far. He's faced 8 batters. He's walked 3 and hit a batter, but he's struck out a pair, hasn't allowed a hit.
He's throwing 97 miles an hour.
One and 2 to Ethier. Here's your AT&T high-speed pitch. Randy Wolf is topped out at 92, and as you just saw, Stokes at 97 tonight. That's some gas.
Interesting that McDonald's throwing. I wonder if Wolf went up to bat to bunt, but now that he can get the bunt down, struck out, that McDonald might be coming into the game.
Ethier strikes out of the foul tip. 3 straight strikeouts for Stokes to end the inning. 7th inning stretch, 8-2 LA. Night on a spring-like July night. Here's your Dunkin' Donuts Ask the Booth. Bob from Clifton Park wants to know, Ronnie, do pitchers throw between starts during the All-Star break?
Oh, absolutely. Even just to play catch. If you're around here and you're staying around New York, a lot of times with Dan Worth and staying around or whatever, you'll come over here, or you'll get maybe Dave Racanello to come over with you and throw a bullpen session. But if you don't have that, you definitely will play catch. In fact, it's pretty funny. I think early in my career, I went home to see my parents in Massachusetts. And if you guys don't know a lot about my mother used to play volleyball and a great softball player. And I used to play catch with her sometimes in the early days before she blew out her rotator cuff. And she always said to me, and my mom's Asian, that she took all the pain that I had from pitching, and that's the reason she had the rotator cuff surgery and I never had one. So it's an interesting way to look at things. But thanks, Mom.
Daniel Murphy pinch hitting, and he takes outside from Wolf. 1-2. Juan Pierre's taken over in left field for Manny Ramirez, and Juan Castro stays in the game at second base after pinch running for the injured Orlando Hudson. You know, I remember a couple of years ago, talking about throwing during the All-Star break, John Maine had a great first half and came back right after the break and got hammered his first time out and was just beside himself because he realized that he had not done the work that he should have during the All-Star break, and vowed never to do that again as Murphy goes down looking for the first out. And I guess sometimes for young players it's something they might take for granted.
Well, it's something you should definitely throw, play catch. You know, for the everyday player, I don't think it's as important, but for the pitcher, I think, you know, over the course of 6 months in a season, that's what we need, a little for the openings, by the way, that makeup.
And everything to follow.
For the everyday players, it's not important. They need rest. But for the pitchers, it's something you do every single day for 6 months. So why not do it on those 3 or 4 day breaks?
It's interesting because during the All-Star break, I take my microphone to dinner and just talk, just to stay in, stay informed.
Boy, your wife Rachel must really appreciate that.
I go to dinner by myself.
You do. I was thinking, Kevin, a kid who grew up in Jersey, loved Bon Jovi, probably sported a lot of jeans and leather. You're looking pretty good in your Canali tonight, brother.
Yeah, I didn't wear this growing up, that's for sure.
Castillo drives one to the gap in right center beyond the reach of Ethier, and it hops over the fence for a ground rule double. So Castillo, who has a home run in his career against Randy Wolf, that's the second time in the last couple of nights that he has really driven a ball to right field.
And we know right-handed. Most of his power, though, when we see him from the right side, has always been down the line or to left field.
He hit this ball 400 feet.
400 feet plus. That's about as far as you can get away, other than that 415 as Joe Torre's going to make the move to McDonald.
So Randy Wolf is done. 117 pitches tonight, a season high. He had thrown 113 in Philly back on May the 13th. So they pushed Wolf a little further tonight with a big lead. And now McDonald will come out of the bullpen for LA with 1 out in the 7th. 8-2 the Dodgers lead. We'll be right back to Citi Field. home of Amazing as the 3-game series with the Reds begins tomorrow night at 7:10 p.m. Visit Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for your tickets now. Randy Wolf, a little energy bar after his longest outing of the year pitch-wise. 6 1/3. And in line for his 4th win as James McDonald will try and ensure that Wolf doesn't have his 8th potential win blown by the Dodger bullpen this year.
Well, he's had a couple of tough innings. You can see his walks to strikeout ratio are not good. 17 walks and only 23 1/3 innings, but unlimited talent. This guy throws 95 miles an hour, great overhand hook. Still working a little bit on that changeup.
Nick Evans tonight 0 for 2. Drew a walk and scored a run back in the 1st inning. Well, Randy Wolf has always pitched well against the Mets, and if he gets the win here tonight, it'll be his 6th consecutive win against the Mets over a 9-start span.
He also has an amazing record here in Flushing, because we can't say it Shea anymore because he had a 6-1 record, I think, at Shea.
Good on both sides of the parking lot.
He is.
The thing about Wolf is that he's gotten the 5 straight wins against the Mets and veering on 6th for 4 different teams. The Phillies, the Dodgers, the Astros, and the Padres. And Evans down swinging at that fastball from McDonald for the 2nd out of the inning.
Well, you can see the raw talent when you watch this replay here. Fastball up in the strike zone, just right by Evans. Electric stuff with lots of movement. And we said the other night that he reminds me a lot of a young Ramon Martinez, Pedro's brother. And Pedro's been in the news the last couple of days, Gary.
Well, the word is that Pedro is negotiating with the Phillies after a tryout in which reportedly Pedro was clocked throwing 93 miles an hour.
Don't put your head in your hands, folks. Don't do it. It's all right.
David Wright takes a fastball for a strike. I'm assuming it was down in the Dominican, and we know Pedro throws harder in hot weather, but still, the fact that he hit 93 on a gun, if it's true, it's remarkable. Curveball forces David to evade 1-1.
And I don't know about the guns, but in the World Baseball Classic, he was throwing much harder than he had ever thrown with the Mets in the last 2 seasons. Just a breaking ball inside from McDonald is going to show some wildness with his secondary pitches.
David with his 2nd consecutive multiple hit game. 2 right field hits tonight. And that changeup sits high, and it's 2-1. David now with 103 hits for the season as Gary Sheffield stands on deck. With 20 stolen bases and 103 hits, Wright is only the 4th Met player to ever record 100 hits and 20 steals before the All-Star break. Jose Reyes did it 3 times. Lee Mazzilli did it once. Lance Johnson did it once, and that's it. And Wright's on for the 3rd time tonight as McDonald issues a walk. And that'll bring Sheffield up with 2 men on.
Well, getting back to the Phillies, you know, they are a starter or a couple starters away. Halliday's been mentioned for the Phillies. Who knows about that? But people have mentioned, as you see, the Phillies have jumped on top as they're scoring runs again.
Jason Worth's 20th home run.
Unbelievable. So now Ibanez, Howard, Utley, and Worth have over 20 or more home runs.
Does Ibanez have 20? Yeah, he does, right?
He does, right?
That's it. Yep.
But a lot of talk was given that they were looking at Cliff Lee, too, the Cleveland Indians. I don't think that would be a great idea, because then 4/5 of the rotation would be left-handed with Hap, Hamels, and Moyer.
Well, they had that with Bastardo before he got hurt. The 4th lefty. And the curveball misses to Sheffield 1-1. Well, there's no question the Phillies are going to go out and get a starter. The question is, can they put together a deal to get an elite starter like a Roy Halladay, or will they settle for a back end of the rotation guy like Pedro?
Well, the problem when you go get a starter like Halladay is that you got to give up on your starters. So, you know, Hap is going to be included in that package. You know, unless you have an elite #1 pick, can't miss prospect.
Well, you'd have to have 3 or 4 big time prospects.
Big time prospects, but I know that if you're a big league team, you'd want a big league starter.
And Sheffield down looking at the curveball. In disbelief. Second strikeout for McDonald out of the bullpen. And the Mets are done in the bottom of the 7th. Tim Redding, next man in for the Mets as we head for the 8th at Citi Field. Well, Gary Sheffield was ejected from the game by home plate umpire Marty Foster for arguing that call third strike.
This is a nasty curveball by McDonald. Sheffield thinks that ball is low. I think it caught enough of the plate. Over the overhead, you see that. Foster saying it's a good pitch. And you can't argue balls and strikes. If you argue balls and strikes, you say the magic word. There it goes.
Oh, wait. Oh, there it is. It's been a tough week for Marty Foster, I got to tell you. So Sheffield is done for the night. Well, that's nice. New feature there.
Very nice. Not so nice for Gary.
Juan Pierre up for the first time facing Tim Redding. Daniel Murphy stays in at first base after pinch hitting, and Fernando Tatis moves to right field with Sheffield ejected. Pierre took over for Manny Ramirez in left field. And you look at Tim Redding out there in relief.
Well, until he relieved the other day, he only had 43 appearances as a reliever. Most of his career, of course, has been as a starter. 10 wins last year for Washington. Really had a slow start to his spring training with the Mets. Of course, had surgery on that toe, hurt shoulder early, came back and was, I say, it's 50-50. Like in some games he would be very effective, and in other games really just could not get deep into the ball game.
Casey Blake on deck, and then James Loney for the Dodgers. Well, Redding looked very sharp in relief on Monday night or Tuesday night. He retired the first 5, and then Blake DeWitt took him deep, just crushed one. Curveball bounced slowly. Murphy wide to get it, and a good lead to Redding. Now with that play last night, Murphy's ready to make every play. 1 out and nobody on. Time to check in with Chris Carlin in the studio for a New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Phil's leading the Marlins by 2, the Braves by 4, and the Mets by 4.5 starting play tonight. Atlanta's leading their game at Colorado 4-2 in the 4th. And Florida just getting started out in Arizona. Casey Blake 1 for 4 tonight, singled home a run back in the 2nd. He has lined out twice and hit a chopping ground ball to short. And Redding pours one over, 1-1. Livan Hernandez started tonight for the Mets. And for the second straight outing, Livan was hit very, very hard. And, you know, that was Livan's last start before the All-Star break, which means he will get extensive rest going into his next start, presumably either in Atlanta or Washington after the break. And I'm wondering, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing for Livan?
Well, it's a good thing for his fastball because he'll come back feeling a lot stronger, but he is a field pitcher. And I think that when he looks at the tape, between the All-Star break or looks at it tomorrow, he'll just see that, he's a little off with his secondary pitches right now. That slider, although later in the game, in his third inning or when he got in the third inning, it was a little sharper. That's the pitch really that he didn't have a feel for tonight.
And Blake hits one sharply by Murphy and down the line. Tatis over to cut it off, and Blake will pull out and go back to first base. Nicely handled by Tatis to hold Blake to a single. So the Dodgers have their 12th hit of the game.
We see Murphy way off that line, opens up that ball down the line from Casey Blake, and nice job of hustling by Blake. A nice job of hustling by Tatis to keep him at first, because I think he thought it was going to be a double all the way, but Tatis, with his fine hustle, kept him at first base.
Got a little more agility in right field than Sheffield, and that certainly helps. We were talking about that earlier, just that ability to move around out there in the outfield with all the expanse here at Citi Field.
Tatis seems to see the ball in right field a little better than left field also when you watch him play. It's a little better jump on the baseball.
James Loney has walked 3 times tonight and also lined out. 8 walks by Met pitchers tonight after 9 last night. 0-2 to Loney. The Dodgers 8 runs and 12 hits. The Mets 2 runs and 7 hits. And Murphy is stepped behind Blake now. 8th inning in a 6-run game. By the way, we were talking before about no-hitters. Mets versus the Astros, who came into the league the same year. The Astros have had 10 no-hitters.
Wow.
I left out the one where they had 6 pitchers combined on one.
That's right.
The one Billy Wagner finished at Yankee Stadium. In fact, the last no-hitter against the Mets was by an Astro in 1993. Darryl Kyle at the Astrodome. Looped into shallow left, and Loney's got himself his first hit of the night. Blake scoots over to third, Loney into second base. So Loney's now got an 8-game hitting streak, his 17th double of the year, and the Dodgers have second and third and 1 out.
Well, we've seen Furcal do this, and now Loney, good pitch away. And you really say to yourself, that's a good pitcher's pitch. How are they able to loop that into left field? Well, one is that's kind of luck, hitting off the end of the bat. But secondly, and more importantly, that the Mets pitchers, when they're not pitching well, not done enough inside to these left-handed hitters to get them that they're conscious inside, so those pitches are more effective.
Well, Russell Martin, who has come to bat with the bases loaded 3 times tonight, comes to bat with second and third this time, but won't get a chance to swing the bat as Redding will intentionally walk him. And Juan Castro will come up if Redding almost threw a wild pitch on an intentional walk. We haven't seen that this year. One of the few things that's eluded us.
Well, we mentioned that Darryl Kyle no-hitter. That was a fun season for you, wasn't it? 1993?
1993, the Mets lost 103 games. They fired the manager. They fired the general manager. They had a player apologize for throwing a firecracker into a crowd. They had a player apologize for spraying bleach onto reporters. And to only lose 103, they had to win the last 6 in a row. And in the last game of the year in Florida, in the 9th inning, rain delay.
Hang with them.
Great year. Juan Castro swings and misses nothing and 1. Well, we showed you before, we showed you Don Mattingly in the Dodger dugout, and he is part of quite a Dodger coaching contingent.
They are the best old-timer coaching staff of all time. Their manager, well, Larry Bowa, 2,191 hits. Mariano Duncan at first base, outstanding shortstop.
Castro lines one into right field. That'll bring home a pair as Blake and Loney come in to score, and the Dodgers now lead 10-2. So Castro, who came on for the injured Orlando Hudson, contributes to the carnage.
Again, another slider on the outside part of the plate. Nice hitting by Castro, just going with it. And the runners, of course, are going to base to base now from Martin first to second base, as this has become a blowout. You know, those other coaches, you know, because when you look at a lot of the coaches nowadays, Gary, a lot of the guys, you know, Hojo's had an amazing career, but a lot of the coaches don't have as much time in the big leagues. Joe Torre, 18-year career and an MVP. There's Shafe. Shafe is one of those guys that did not have a big league career. Bo with 2,191 hits. Duncan had 1,247 hits. Mattingly, 14 years, and you know what he did in this town. Honeycutt, 109 wins. Manny Mota, who's one of their acting coaches, he had 106 career pinch hits. I mean, just amazing careers for all of them.
That's very unusual. We were talking before about you know, managers and who had great playing careers, and Joe Torre's right near the top of the list there. You know, we talked about Frank Robinson and Pete Rose before. I mean, you don't generally get great players who become great managers. But Torre was a great player, borderline Hall of Famer as a player. 1-2 to Kemp. And he fouls it off. By the way, Elias came up with this note on Mattingly. Among the 27 players who've played the most games all time for the Yankees, Mattingly is the only one among the 27 players who played the most games for the Yankees who never played in a World Series. Wow. In fact, the guy with the next most games played for the Yankees who never played in the World Series after Mattingly,
played behind Mel Stottlemyre, didn't he?
Horace Clarke. I mean, talk about bad timing.
I played against Donnie in the minor leagues, and you just knew he was going to be a star, sporting that white soul patch so far. But he just, you know, if you're in this town in the 80s.
As Kemp lines another one into center field. Base hit for Kemp, his third of the night. That chases home Martin to make it 11-2. And it just gets worse and worse. What a series for Kemp. 8 hits in 11 at bats.
Pretty good sinker inside. Caught a little bit of the plate, but Kemp is just red hot. Dumps that into center field.
Now the pitcher McDonald will bat for himself. Right-hand pitcher becomes up batting left-handed and takes a strike. Well, you were talking about Mattingly and what it was like here in the 80s with Mattingly and Keith, the first baseman in this town.
You know, it was Mattingly and Winfield, of course, who had that great batting race to the last day. But if you lived in this town at that time, even the Mets players of that time really admired Donnie because he's just one of those class guys, great hitter. Some historical things he did for the Yankees, like home runs in consecutive games. I think that was 9, I believe. And it was a great rivalry to see the two first basemen who Donnie had more power. Keith probably got, you know, Keith got maybe a high hit for a higher average sometimes. No, he didn't. Mattingly was amazing. Keith was maybe a little better fielder than Don, but Donnie was a great fielder. In fact, he played third base sometimes now.
McDonald strikes out for the second out.
But if you were a Yankee, you were saying, which one's better? You know, Mattingly or Hernandez? And that was a constant battle then in the 80s.
Look at that, consecutive seasons with 25 homers, 100 RBIs, 40 doubles, and a 300 average. That's probably going to end for David this year. Pujols will probably add to that, but that's pretty exalted company there. Musial, Gehrig, Mattingly. Only 5 of them have done that.
Mattingly was one of those players that played for another team, but you'd say to yourself, boy, I'd like to have him on my team.
Well, and you can also look at his career and say if he had not hurt his back, I mean, he would have been a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. But the injuries curtailed his production. Redding finally gets through the inning by getting Furcal to ground out. But the Dodgers tack on 3 and lead it 11-2.
Welcome back to Citi Field. Hasn't been the best of nights for the Mets, so we're going to unveil a new program feature tonight. It's the Ask the Booth Part 2, the live version. That's what we're going to do. Went around and started to get the pulse of the fans and figured, guys, I'd give you a question right from one of the fans here today. So I found Anthony from West Long Branch, New Jersey. And what do you got for the fellas?
All right, guys, quick question for you. Do the players right now, the Mets, think they have a team assembled right now to win?
Very well presented. I'm impressed. Guys, your answer.
Well, thank you. That's a very good question from West Long Branch.
That was great.
From the stands here at Citi Field. Blake DeWitt takes over at third base for Casey Blake for the Dodgers. I think it's different for players than it is for media or management or the manager and coaches. I think that if you're a player, all you can do is look inside yourself to see what you can do.
So true. I think that, you know, they don't spend a second thinking of what they don't have. They try to really concentrate on what they do have. And in games like this, of course, this is going to be a tough loss, and guys are going to leave the ballpark depressed and not feeling good about this loss. But as soon as they get up tomorrow morning, they're going to be thinking about, well, what can I do to help this team win tomorrow? The starting pitcher is going to think to himself, I got to have a better effort. I've got to make sure I take this game because of the use of a lot of the guys in the bullpen. I've got to be a 7 or 8 inning pitcher tomorrow. So there's so much talk, and that's a great question, by the way. There's so much talk around about the team and how it's made up, and should there be a trade and all those things. Players in the clubhouse don't think that way. Guys like Alex Cora do not think that way. They're just concentrated on, hey, listen, we're having a bad streak. How are we going to rebound from this? How are we going to take 2 out of 3 from the Reds and go maybe into the break, the midsummer break, with a good feeling about ourselves? And as they come back, and Jerry and his staff are going to try to put together some Band-Aids and nuts and bolts to get this team together, how are they going to stay in the race until their core players get back? And I know that's not very comforting for you fans who would like a little more immediate results, but that's how players think when they're going through difficult times.
Tatis on with a leadoff walk to bring up Church. I think the challenge, though, for the manager right now, and I think Jerry addressed this in part when he had his team meeting in Milwaukee and then had the team bus ride the next day, is when you get to this point where no piece of your team is functioning well, right? They're not hitting, they're not playing great defense, they're not getting good starting pitching, they're not getting good relief pitching. What you want to avoid more than anything else is the pointing of fingers. And as long as everybody's looking inside themselves for solutions rather than looking outside themselves to find blame, I think that's all you can do.
Well, this would be the ultimate team to not point fingers, because, you know, everyone has had their day. And, you know, so, and I think they're stronger than that. You know, this team is struggling right now, and it's easy to say that, you know, they're not good enough to win ball games. I've seen a lot more fight in them than other teams I've seen who are going through this process. It's Jerry's staffs. Born in Georgia, but grew up in California, Northern California, Sacramento. Jerry was a great football player as a young man, right?
He was. Born in Texas, but grew up in Sacramento, went to high school there, and had a great high school football career. 3-1 to Church, and he hits a double play bouncer right to Castro. There for Collin on to first for the 4-6-3 double play. 2 out and nobody on. I think the point that you make is a good one, Ronnie, because being in that clubhouse every day, this team has better chemistry than some recent Met teams that might have fared better. That just because the results are lacking on the field, you should not infer from that the chemistry is lacking. I think sometimes they may be lacking talent because they are so shorthanded in a lot of areas. But I think actually for a team in this situation that is struggling so mightily, they've got about as good a group to try and find a way through that as they've had in a long time. Santos drives one to center field, and easing over is Kemp to make the play to retire the side. So the Mets are done in the bottom of the 8th. On to the 9th, 11-2 LA. IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Firestone. By Geico. By Toyota. And by Bud Light Lime. The drinkability of Bud Light with the refreshing taste of lime. Well, Fernando Tatis will play his third position of the night. He moves over to third base. David Wright gets an inning off. Yes, Keith has gone fishing. Thank you very much.
By the way, whiteout. Beautiful.
Jeremy Reed comes in to play center field. He'll hit in the right spot, and Church moves over to right.
Keith wants us to remind everyone out there he has not been suspended like he said on the air. He is still with the group. He just has a little time off, that's all.
We'll see him in Atlanta right after the break. He'll be there. Unless he, I don't know, unless he finds a better plan. You know, if it has a little too much weeding to do in the backyard.
His better plan includes SNY in it, by the way.
Tim Redding for his second inning of relief, as Andre Ethier will lead off in the ninth inning. The Dodgers with 11 runs and 15 hits. And Ethier takes ball one. The Dodgers had 8 runs and 13 hits on Tuesday night, 4 runs and 9 hits last night, 11 and 15 tonight. So they have been clicking in this series. The team with the best record in baseball is showing why. And it's 1-1 to Ethier, who's 1 for 4 and a walk tonight. It'll be Ethier, then Juan Pierre, and then Blake DeWitt for the Dodgers in the ninth. Tomorrow night the Reds come to town. Fernando Nieve will make the start for the Mets. Bronson Arroyo goes for the Reds.
Time for Fernando to rebound, right?
Well, he had the 3 great starts to begin his Mets career, as Ethier picks up his second hit of the night. Hit number 16 for LA.
You know, the one thing I think is easy to rebound from is, what would you say was his strength when you looked at him pitch the first few starts? My feeling was, here's a guy that goes right after hitters, throws strikes, not afraid. But his last walk, ironically, his last start walked 6. You know, that's not where he wants to be.
And I think, you know, part of that might have been a consequence of pitching in Philadelphia.
Yeah, definitely. But, you know, he just wants to get back to throwing strikes because his stuff is good enough.
Sliding attempt by Evans comes up short, and Pierre has a base hit. Well, Evans playing very deep against the left-hand hitting Juan Pierre. Remember, he got burned earlier in the game when Orlando Hudson hit one over his head. He's been playing very deep since then, and it cost him here.
You know, you have a first baseman that's playing left field, so of course doesn't have that kind of speed to make that catch. Good effort. And you can't find any fault in a guy who hustled from start 1 to start 2. I mean, place A to place B, and just didn't come up with a play.
So now Blake DeWitt up for the first time. Took over at third base for Casey Blake. DeWitt had a home run as a pinch hitter against Reading in the first game of this series. His first home run, and in fact his first RBI of the season. He's only been up briefly with the Dodgers after spending most of last year in LA, and had a fine rookie season. And the changeup misses high, 1-1. They've gone to the ninth in Philadelphia. The Phillies up 9-6 on the Reds. If the Phillies hang on and win that game, and this one stays the same, the Mets will fall 5.5 behind in the National League East. It's a diehard group right there. Let's check in with Kevin.
Guys, interesting note about Citi Field and with the Dodgers in town. This is right to bring this up now. Is that when they were doing the plans for this place, the team actually got the original architectural plans of Ebbets Field. How neat is that? Obviously totally different. Those were done on the old blue sheets. Now everything's on computer. They looked at them. They didn't do an overlay or anything like that. They actually just kind of looked and used it as the image, but they didn't do anything to exact specifications or anything like that. For the building of this place, they actually went more on historical photos and actually a lot on Fred Wilpon's memory, to be quite honest with you. But it was neat. I was looking at some of the pictures of the rotunda. They had in Ebbets Field an 80-foot rotunda. They had a chandelier as DeWitt strikes out. Chandelier with 12 baseball bats, and on top of the bats were 12 globes painted like baseballs. And it's funny, the picture of the rotunda, nothing like here at Citi Field. It kind of looked like a grand hotel where you walked in. There were like doors and just the chandelier and basically nothingness in the middle of that hallway. The other thing I found, which was kind of neat, which just reading some things on Ebbets Field, is that when they built the park, they forgot to put in a press box or an area for any of the press to sit. So they had to sit in the last 2 rows of the upper deck, which must have been kind of interesting. Guys?
You know, it's interesting to talk about the inside of the rotunda at Ebbets Field, because for all the pictures that we've seen of the outside, I don't think I've ever seen a picture of the inside of the Ebbets Field rotunda. Loney lifts one to center, and Reed cutting over and steps in front of Evans to make the play for the second out.
But guys, you know, the one thing that they did take is that in Ebbets Field, they did have the Italian terrazzo floor, just as they have here in Citi Field. So that was the same.
But let me ask you a question. Did they have the pulled pork at Blue Smoke at Ebbets Field?
You know, it's a good question. I'd like to find out, to be honest with you.
All we need now is we need the Dodger Symphony and Hilda Chester and her cowbell.
We got the cowbell.
Yes, we do. We have Cowbell Man, the latter day version.
I saw him the other day as I was leaving the ballpark after the game. I see a lot of the fans when I'm leaving the ballpark. And the Cowbell Man was telling me that he just became a grandfather a couple days ago.
A third generation cowbell kid.
There you go.
Congratulations. Russell Martin 1 for 4 and a walk tonight. Well, the Mets, the heirs to the Brooklyn Dodgers legacy. And there were many tears shed when Walter O'Malley moved the team to Los Angeles in 1957 at the end of the season. When Horace Stoneham also moved the Giants to San Francisco. Line to center. Reed steadies and makes the grab to end the inning. 2 hits and 2 left. Last licks for the Mets. Mets games on SNY are available in HD, presented by IOTV. 3 games with the Reds leading to the All-Star break. It all starts tomorrow night here at Citi Field, and then the Mets get a much-needed 3 days off before reconvening in Atlanta next week. A trip that will take them to Atlanta, Washington, and Houston. So the Mets will be away for a full 2 weeks. Former Met Claudio Vargas will try and finish off the night for the Dodgers.
It's like rubbing salt in the wounds if you're a Met fan. I mean, Vargas and Moda closed out the first win. Claudio Vargas trying to close out this one. Been out most of the year with an injury.
Pitched a scoreless inning on Tuesday night in the first game of the series. It'll be Alex Cora, Daniel Murphy, and Luis Castillo. They bat for the Mets in the last of the ninth. If the Mets fall 5.5 games out, which looks likely, it would be the farthest from first place they've been this season. They were 5 games out 2 weeks into the season. Remember, the Marlins got off to that 11-1 start, and the Mets were 5 games out and won a couple of points.
There's an ardent follower. Still staying in the game through 9. You got to like that.
All you need is 9 runs.
I saw 3 scored in a big game once. Can happen.
That was with 2 out. Alex Cora takes ball 1. Cora 0 for 3 tonight, 1 for his last 14, and I think you can objectively say that nobody needs the All-Star break more than Alex Cora.
And it would be the last person to tell you that would be Alex,
Yeah.
because he just doesn't have that in his brain. He is all about all out all the time. Is Daniel Murphy on deck?
Ball line into center, and that'll be trapped by Kemp. It's a base hit for Cora. Kemp making the diving attempt with a 9-run lead. Just came up short.
A nice hustle by Kemp here, who traps that ball, but even more importantly, in a game that our fellow guy in the booth, Keith Hernandez, always talks about not giving up at bats. Alex Cora stayed in that game. These are the kind of bats that you got to fight tooth and nail not to give up.
Second time up for Daniel Murphy tonight. Struck out as a pinch hitter in the 7th. Stayed in the game at first base.
Ball players are human. There's a part in there that's got to have some despair right now, right?
Well, at the same time, though, you know, there's a certain part as a hitter, especially, I think, where you have to be a little selfish right now. I mean, the odds are 1,000,000 to 1 against winning the game, but that doesn't mean that you can't get some for yourself.
Agreed. Agreed. A team game with individual moments.
Here's a 2-0, grounded down to third. DeWitt gets the out at second. Castro having to reach for it, and that cost him the chance for a double play. So they erase Cora for the first out of the inning.
Well, this is a play that DeWitt just could not get the handle, did not make a good throw. Now it's a nice play by Castro, just making sure to get that one out.
So 1 out and 1 on. Now Luis Castillo, who drove a double that bounced over the fence in right center field about 405 feet away in the 7th inning. That was batting right-handed. Now he'll bat left against Vargas.
What are the odds of Luis Castillo hitting a ball that ground rule double to right field in this ballpark, and Juan Pierre hitting the ball off the right center field fence for a triple
in the same series?
That's right.
Don't forget, right after we're done here, it's Lincoln Mercury post-game live. Chris Carlin and Bobby Ojeda will have all the interviews, Jerry's post-game reactions, and we'll get you ready for the Red Series coming up this weekend. All on Lincoln Mercury post-game live right after tonight's game and after all 162 Mets games. Well, 163 if there's a one-game playoff. Right here on SNY.
The eternal optimist, Klaus Cohen.
Remember 1951?
That's right.
The Giants were 14 games behind the Dodgers in August, and came back and forced a best-of-3 playoff.
Yeah.
That led to the most famous home run of all time.
Well, being from where I'm from, 1978 rings quite sour for me.
That was a one-gamer. And of course, the Mets have been involved in a one-game playoff. That was in 1999 when they tied the Reds for the wild card. Went to Cincinnati, and Al Leiter shut out the Reds to send them into the postseason.
It was hard in '78 because my freshman year at Yale, and everyone there was a Yankee fan. So it was dreadful when Yastrzemski popped up to make the last out off Goose Gossage.
You know, everybody remembers that, and they remember the Bucky Dent home run. What I remember is Lou Piniella blindly feeling for a ball that he couldn't see.
I think Dewey Evans hit that ball, and it was right in the sun. At one hop, he stuck his glove out, and it went right in the glove. Also, before the home run by Bucky Dent, these kids are having a blast. They don't care what the score is.
I think the Dodger fan is teasing the Met fan. You'll have your day. 3-2 to Castillo.
Remember when Bucky Dent, he fouled the ball off his shin. It took him forever to come back, and he had broke his bat. He had to get a new bat. Torres, in fact, Mike Torres, the starting pitcher of the Red Sox, did not throw any warm-up pitches. None. And his first pitch then, of course, over the monster.
Castillo draws a walk. Now let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You knew Mike Torres very well.
Yes.
Is it true that after the ball went through Buckner's legs, that Mike Torres was heard to say here across the parking lot at Shea Stadium, heard to say, "I'm off the hook"?
I've heard that story. I don't know if it's true. I have definitely heard that story. Because although he never got the Mike Leaping Torres ever in Fenway, he was thought of that way in some circles. And yes, Mike was a good friend, and until he was released because of all the young talent the Mets had in 1984, he was a mentor and really helped me in a lot of different ways.
Nick Evans 0 for 3. Mets have 2 men on in the bottom of the ninth. And there's a strike from Claudio Vargas.
What World Series did Mike catch the final out by the bunt that was popped up? It was for the Yankees. Was that 77?
Not sure.
Yeah. That was Yankees Dodgers.
Could have been 77 or 78. Off the corner, and it's 2-1. Dave Freed says 77. Had to be because 78 was pitching for the Red Sox.
That's right.
Mike moved a lot.
He did. He's one of those guys. I mean, I think he started in St. Louis.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite Mike Morgan.
No.
Who pitched for 12 different teams, but he was up there. 2-1 to Evans. This could do it. Furcal completes the double play, 4-6-3, and the Dodgers have taken the rubber game of the 3-game series and dropped the Mets for the 10th time in their last 13 games, as the Mets have now fallen a season low 5.5 games behind the first place Phillies.